Here we go. It's the New York Hardcore Chronicles live. Once again, Sunday shout out day. Post them up. Who we shouting out today? Happy Sunday, everybody around the world. What's going on? Yes. What's up, Enzo? Ciao from Italy. All right. All right, Joe Frank, what do you say? Everybody out there. Jeff Steiner, here we go. Often imitated, never duplicated. It's the New York Hardcore Chronicles live. We are sponsored by New York Hardcore Comics, the Texas Silver Rush, Chain Reaction Records and Skateboards, DTFM Vinyl Distro, Chacho's Tacos, Generation Records, and The Organic Grill. It's a vegan restaurant located in East Village, New York City at 123 First Avenue. Featured in New York Magazine, the New York Times, and Veg News. Their dishes have won numerous awards, including Best Veggie Burger. They make their own cheeses, sausages, and burger patties. And every dish on the menu can be made gluten-free. This year, they're celebrating their 21st anniversary, and they're all about enjoying amazing, clean food. They have now fully reopened for business and look forward to seeing you. Get in touch with them. Order some great food at www.theorganicgrill.com. Who's ready for a great show today? Is the video frozen for anyone else? It's frozen. Am I frozen? There you go. Shout out to Tony Giacomi from Shallow, North Dakota. Is that a place? Shallow, North Dakota? Interesting. What's up, Pugsy? There you go. What's up, Drumming Moose? Good to see you too. Jennifer Lloyd, thank you, hon. Happy Sunday to you too. Come on, let's get some shout outs going. Boston sending up big ups to Drew and crew. Some people are frozen, some people are glitching. Shout out to Sugary Cereals. Okay. What is a sugary cereal? Like Frosted Flakes? Oh God, that shit is disgusting. Yo, what's happened, Larry the Hunter? What do you say, bro? How's that Kings Never Die recording coming along? You know? How about we talk about the next 4 shows real quick here? Coming up, before we bring on the hardcore bug of Shudder. Coming up this Wednesday, formerly of Warzone and Sick of It All. EK is coming on the show. That's this Wednesday. A week from today. Come on. Bring the noise. Scott Ian's coming on the show. And then Wednesday, August 11th, it is, I will remind you again, it is a 1 p.m. show. For the first time, 1 o'clock. I know fucking no one's paying attention. Be like, oh, I'm late. 1 p.m. show with Glenn E. Friedman. All right? Glenn E. Friedman. And then Wednesday, August 18th, Sammy Town coming on the show from Fang. So there you go. What a lineup. Yeah. There you go. There you go. Yep. A lot of love for EK for sure. Shout out to having quality time. Okay. Go see Examine August 15th. You know, funny you should mention that. Funny you should mention that. How about the Next Day 7 show 2 weeks from today? The Next Day 7 show, Sunday, August 15th, from the bottom up. Ape, All Proven Equal, Reaching Out, Posse in Effect doing their great Beastie Boys tribute, Bowhead, Butterbrain, and celebrating the release of the album Blessed Examine. So come on down to the A7. We're still doing it down there. You know, there you go. That said, I know you're all wondering, I am too, what's going on with this dude? What you reading, man?
Hello.
Hello. What is that? Cannibalism, Headhunting, and Human Sacrifice in North America. A History Forgotten. Wow.
Some interesting stuff in here, by the way.
About what? People eating other humans' flesh?
People eating people. Shrinking heads.
In North America?
Yeah. America was a brutal place before it became a brutal place. But
Now, how far back you have to go when people were eating each other?
not as far
Yeah, is
back
that
as
a
you
cookbook?
think.
Is that a cookbook, bro? Thank you.
I got some good non-plant-based recipes in here for you.
Yeah,
by the way.
give it to let's give it to John Joseph. I'm sure he,
Oh
beyond
man,
human meat for vegans. Yeah, right. It's a
but
beyond. Yeah.
it's Beyond Burger. That's right. That's right.
Oh, hello. Would you like some info on cannibals? Okay.
Yes. Have you?
Yes, some light reading. Who were cannibals? Not the Indians. American Indians were
Oh yeah.
cannibals.
Oh yeah. There's in fact.
Oh, you mean I'm going to eat my enemy's heart?
Well, no, like they would have certain like slave girls dance for them, and then they would split their skulls and eat them.
Eat what? Eat their skull? Eat
No,
what's in their
the whole person.
Seems a little extreme to me.
I suppose. But
hey, put on a dance for me, and then I'm going to kill you and eat you.
Exactly. I don't know if is that a compliment or does that mean you're a bad dancer?
Listen, man.
But hey, it is Shout Out Sunday. I want to shout out the Witch Doctor Brewing Company, by the way. I went up to New Rochelle. I got some breed brew right here from Hate Breed Perseverance Pale Ale. It's good stuff, by the way. And it's 5.8%.
Is that a lot or a little? I don't know.
You know what? The average beer is like 4.2. And these days it's right in the middle.
Are you smashed yet? Have you been drinking?
No, I just had one. No.
Oh no, I'm not drunk.
But no, there are some beers now, like in the craft beer world, no joke, are like 14, 15%. Like one of these will knock you on your ass. But this is a good middle ground right here. It's not bad at all, though.
Have you ever eaten human flesh?
Not during the show.
Woo. Yeah. All right.
With some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
What was that from?
The Silence of the Lambs.
Oh yeah.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice
great
Chianti.
comedy about cannibals done by the makers of South Park called Cannibal the Musical.
Oh, that's right. I remember hearing about that.
Here you go. Daniel Rakowitz, Tompkins Square cannibalism promoter. Yeah. He's the guy who killed his girlfriend and made
Oh, that's right. He
gave it to the homeless. I remember him.
In a soup, right?
Yeah. I remember him too, man. Actually, what's his name? Crazy Dave was his super in that building.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Here we go.
On that happy note.
On a lighter note.
Who's hungry?
Yeah. Who wants some of this? Would you? Yeah, that's crazy, man. Let's do photo of the day. Wrong answers only, please. It is Sunday shout out day. Let's have a couple of laughs. Wrong answers only, please. Photo of the day. Boom. What do we got here? What do we have here? Well, I'll say this. The guy on the far right on the phone, staring at his phone, and then the interesting dude on the left with the drumstick in his hand. He's like, I don't know who the hell this is.
Are they having a good time?
Like one dude's on the phone. One dude's like, is that Derek from Sepultura? Is it Kiss? Is it Hatebreed? Is it Limp Bizkit? Is it Wham? Is it a white guy in Dickie pants?
It's a Dickie white guy.
Yep. Limp Bizkit. Listen, why do you think it's Limp Bizkit? Because the guy's wearing a Yankee hat? You know? Is it Fred Durst on meth? Is it Vixen? That's a stretch. Is it when you're on stage and trying to remember if you left the icon on?
He does have that look on his face, kind of.
Yeah, like, oh.
Did I pay my phone bill?
Is it the Dickie? Did I leave the oven on when I left the house? E.T. phone home. Is it Billy Joel's backup band? Is it? Yeah. Did I leave the iron on? Right. Did I leave the iron on? Did I leave the air conditioner on in my apartment? You know. Okay. Is it Cinderella? Hey, the dude from Cinderella just passed away. The guitar.
Two
player.
of them.
Who else died?
The keyboard player too. The same week.
Who the fuck was the keyboard player?
I didn't even. He was like a hired gun.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
That first Cinderella. Yo, talking about Philly, man. We got to ask our guest. Talk about Philly. Cinderella is like that was like.
Yeah. Like first, those guys were huge in their time.
Is it the Insane Clown Posse? Is it the Spin Doctors? What was that? If you want to call me baby.
Oh, Two Princes.
Oh man, that shit made me want to go.
Do you know? I shot that band and they literally physically stunk. They must have been touring for a long time, but I was up in the pit shooting, and they were the stankiest band I've ever shot.
I went to a bar mitzvah a couple years ago, and they were playing.
Oh, really?
They were playing I'm like, wait a second, is that this? Wait, really?
They had their moment. They were pretty. That jam band stuff was big for a short time, you know.
Is it H2O? Is it a step in aerobics class? I seen that kid arguing with his girlfriend on 6th Avenue.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, there's another one you sent, right?
Yes.
Okay, hold on. There's another one. Hold your horses. Hold your horses. Photo of the day number 2. Here we go. Just for you, photo of the day. Number 2. Oh, we lost him. He'll be back. Anybody else? Is it the Soup Dragons? Was it stinkier than being in a crust punk show? What's going on with you, bro?
It happened again. That's so strange.
Yeah, you know that.
Anywho.
All right, right answers only, please.
There we go. Yeah,
nice bass this guy's playing.
Yeah, no, this is a nice shot. I like this one.
That's a nice fucking bass, man.
Is that a 5-string?
Yeah. Is it MXPX? Is it Alien Ant Farm?
No.
Is it? How many years do I got to do this shit? Is it Immure?
There we go.
Is it Immure? Is it Immure? Is it Immure or Manowar?
I got to say, Clint Eastwood is always on point.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's always on point whenever it comes to right answers.
Yep. Well, there you go. Tell us about it.
This is Immure, as a matter of fact, and this was Warped Tour 2010, Nassau Coliseum parking lot, and Bring Me the Horizon and Suicide Silence. I think the big bands on that one were like Bad Religion, Rancid, Less Than Jake, No Effects, but these guys were probably one of the heavier bands to play that. And I think he rebuilt the band right around this time. Either before or after this, I think like the whole band got shaken up. And, which is weird because it was that same time period, like one of the band's singers died. One guy like trashed the whole band and rebuilt it. But all these bands were starting to happen. And
Nikki Bullet says I was there. Lenny says, nice starting of the neck beard right there. Adam Sachs says, singer of Immure is a douchebag. Oh, my.
Does Immure mean something? Like, I always wondered that. Like, what does that mean?
Or is it manure? I don't know this. I don't know this band. Was there a New York hardcore stage?
No, you know what? There should have been, but no, there wasn't. You know who else played? The Casualties. These shows are always fun, and these guys were heavy. Like that's one of the things I remember. That this was probably the first I've seen them.
There's a video of their singer getting severely shocked and dropping on stage. Scary stuff.
Oh Jesus.
Oh man, he might be a douchebag, but we'll cut him a little slack. Poor bastard almost got killed on stage.
Yeah, that's scary. That's a scary
So
thing to think
someone
about.
in the '60s, somebody got shocked and died on stage. I think the singer for Stone the Roses or something.
Oh my
I remember
God! Well,
correctly.
didn't Ace Frehley got electrocuted on stage too? Back in the '70s.
I saw someone get electrocuted on one of my father's film shoots once when I was like a no, I wasn't a teenager, I was older, but
Oof.
he was on the camera, right? And he was a cameraman. And you know the camera has like a handle, a metal handle, and he reached to turn a light on, right? And back
Oh no.
then the light it was like a metal kind of box with the switch on it. So he grabbed and he fucking arced.
Oh, had he let go with the other hand, he wouldn't have gotten electrocuted. But he
Correct.
created his. Oh, that's
He
so we got
arced. And he
stuff
was
like
like,
that.
ah!
Oh
And
my
I was like,
God.
what's going on? And he kicked the light and kicked it out of his hand.
Oh my
He
God.
got
Unfortunately, I've seen that on the railroad. You know, I've seen people like if you touch the rail even a little bit, the third rail, like it's pretty scary because a lot of times electricity goes in you and it needs to find a way out. So like I've seen guys that have like a hole blown through their shoulder just from the electricity leaving their body.
If you here's a railroad question. If you just touch that third rail, you get zapped?
Oh, well, depending on where your feet are. Like if you're grounded and if you're wearing the proper shoes. But yeah, 9 times out of 10, if you just touch that rail, yes, you are. And you could pretty much most of the time die.
Nancy Taylor says I was standing in a puddle of water while
That'll do
blow-drying
it.
my big 80s hair and I got shocked pretty good.
That's the worst way to do it because water and electricity speeds the process up.
Whitney says a lady at one of our hospitals caught fire from the defibrillators last month.
Oh my God. What a horrible thing.
You know what?
Wow.
I think that's the name of my new band.
Defibrillator?
Yo, we're the defibrillators. Whoa, you suck. All right, bro. We got to get our guest on.
Awesome.
All right,
See
I'll
everybody
talk
in
to
a
you
little bit.
All right. What's happening? It's Sunday Shout Out Day, and this is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live, and we are sponsored by New York Hardcore Comics, The Organic Grill, Chain Reaction Records and Skateboards, DTFM Vinyl Distro, Generation Records, Chacho's Tacos, and the Texas Silver Rush is a jewelry design firm and boutique store located in the birthplace of the Texas country music scene in Fredericksburg, Texas. They specialize in working with musicians in all music genres to design and create unique one-off pieces, as well as to style them for stage album covers, promo photos, and social media exposure. Their client list includes Rock Roll Hall of Famers Greg Rolle, Ringo Starr, and of course, the mighty Agnostic Front. During this current pandemic, which will never end, all information and online sales are being taken at their Facebook and Instagram pages, and of course, www.texassilverrush.com. Also, let me find a short one. How about DTFM Vinyl Distro? Is a record store that specializes in underground music, punk, ska, hardcore, metal, and more. Located in the heart of Fargo, North Dakota's industrial district, shop in person or online at www.dtfmvinyldistro.com, where the motto is death to false metal. There you go. All right, everybody behaving themselves on this Sunday. Shout out to Lou DeBella. Okay, no problem. There you go. Oh man. A spark from the device caught her oxygen tank. She died. Shout out to the woman that was using the defibrillator that died. Those are people who died. That said, let's move it. Let's specializing in underwear music. There you go. All right, enough with tales of woe, electricity tales of woe. Let's bring our guest on. Let's clear the deck and let's get into it. Let's do what we do. Today's guest is a promoter and musician hailing from the Keystone State of Pennsylvania. As a musician, he is known for his work with the bands Shattered Realm and Punishment. As a promoter, he is known as the founder and driving force behind one of the premier purely hardcore festivals in America, This Is Hardcore. Please welcome, coming at us from Philly, Pennsylvania, Mr. Joe Hardcore McKay. Hey, bro.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing well.
How's things down there in Philly?
I'm happy that we don't have this Sahara level heat coming at us. So I'm
right?
happy. I'm in a good mood.
Enough already, right? What's the latest? I know we talked a little bit beforehand, and we're going to try to split it up a little bit. We're going to try to talk music, and then we're going to talk This Is Hardcore. But I'm going to kick it off with, what's the latest, and what's been happening since the zombie apocalypse hit, and it's okay. I know it's a This Is Hardcore thing a little bit, so bring us up to speed.
On This Is Hardcore front, or just in shows in Philadelphia in general?
In general, whatever.
So the biggest death blow to This Is Hardcore was the Monday before any human being talked about COVID. Brian Dilworth, who is literally known as a legendary figure in DIY promoting, who became literally like a tour de force in becoming a DIY promoter, then Live Nation, and then back to Electric Factory. He passed away the Monday before this whole pandemic started. Oof. He's actually really noted for being the man who paid Fugazi the most amount of money possible. But he and I were working on This Is Hardcore 2020. And so when the COVID hit, it's kind of like a kingdom without a king. He was the person who brought us into the factory and shielded us from a lot of the corporate structures and a lot of the red tape, because Brian had the juice. So walking into 220 was already kind of not only like a painful thing because he wasn't there, but also with the change of guard, it was going to seem like a lot of things were going to shift and change. So I actually look at the COVID as a way to avoid the restructuring, because I wasn't ready to deal with a non-Brian Dilworth involved This Is Hardcore. And actually, Tim Bohr was the one who linked us when he's like, your fest keeps selling out. You got to go to the factory. Brian's the only reason why we went there. No other person would have brought us to that room. And
is that a Live Nation room per se?
No, it was Larry, real quickly, Larry Magnet started booking shows as the Electric Factory concerts in the late 60s. In fact, Lee Ving's blues band opened for a ton of bands. Like, he's been around as a music icon in Philadelphia forever. Wow. And he purchased the first Electric Factory venue in the 70s. So in the mid 90s, he reopened.
Let me just interject that. Sure. That first Electric Factory venue was iconic. I mean,
absolutely.
In the late 60s, early 70s, that was, all the psychedelic bands played there, the Allman Brothers, Fleetwood Mac. It was a iconic venue.
Absolutely. So they reopened in the mid to late 90s in that facility as the Electric Factory. And Brian had risen from a DIY promoter and was involved in the factory. And then for a bit took some time in Live Nation, but then gave up and came back to work with Larry independently. And there was just for people listening who were like, oh, Live Nation's not so bad. When Brian left in the factory and Brian went back to work, the Live Nation owned the website. They wouldn't let the factory have it. They actually built an entire venue, the same exact size of the factory, to cut them out. Live Nation is the Starbucks of music, where they cut out and remove the live pulse of music in any city, so they own the venues. Yeah. And so Brian was integral in it. So in 2020, This Is Hardcore, we got a pass because he had passed and with COVID. Looking into 2022, we have to look at the deal. We have to look at how This Hardcore, which is a DIY, completely produced show, works within a corporate structure. And whenever the word corporate structure comes, you got to understand it's a massive amount of extra money, super amounts of red tape, a lot of ball busting, and we might just go back to something at a smaller level to keep our integrity, and so that way we can continue to do this for another 15 years. And I think that's the more important play for me, is not to worry about the size of the room we're in, but to keep the entire focus on the principles of the culture, making sure we can operate freely as an independent people bringing a show to the room. But we have many friends inside the venue and in management and a lot of aspects over the years of working at the factory. So I am leaving the door open to it, but I also have to look at alternatives in case the deal doesn't work for us.
Absolutely. And I've told you this before, I'm a fan of that room. It is really a great room. And I must say that I think that for This Is Hardcore, one of the really great things about that venue is the fact that you sort of have that outdoor merchandise set up, area where it's like it's like being in a flea market. You can just, stroll the aisles and everybody's doing their thing. And I think that's such a great part of This Is Hardcore.
Oh, it's a huge part of our culture. And so, one of the things that was up on the table is the fact that when you play a corporate owned place like Live Nation, or in this case, AEG Live, which is the venue owner now, they want to take a percentage of the band's merchandise.
Yeah. And
by proxy, I just don't stand for that. And I'm one of the few promoters that has the ability to have deals in the city with venues where still 100% of merchandise goes to the bands. And so on top of making sure that we would have an outside environment just to sell, there's also this thing where over the last 15 years, This Is Hardcore has become a reunion of sorts for so many friends.
Absolutely.
I have friends who have their anniversaries. Craigie, who runs the barbershop that's been coming down here for years, he and his wife were just in town because they met at This Hardcore, and they just wanted to celebrate their anniversary in Philadelphia. So as hardcore people get older and young kids can travel only certain times because of college, This Is Hardcore and other festivals are paramount. And in a way, in the way the anime con and the comic cons and the monster cons bring people together, This Is Hardcore and festivals do the same kind of thing. So instead of just encapsulating everything from the show, the bands, everything in one room, there's tons of people that openly say, I only seen 5 or 6 bands this whole weekend, but I loved it.
You know what, Joe? We're here. Let's fucking do it. So, tell us a little bit about what's because this is perfect. This plays into what you're saying, and also I think that regionally something like This Is Hardcore or Punk Rock Bowling or the Black and Blue Bowl inevitably becomes, for that state and that particular scene, somewhat of a reunion, right?
No, it's exactly what it is. And so, we are still a subculture despite the many avenues that the internet has to people to check out what we're in. This is still something that I grew up in. This picture that Drew has on the screen is the generations of Philadelphia hardcore that were present when I was like, I want a Philadelphia hardcore picture. People in this picture are people that raised me from the time I was a teen, people that now they're in their teens. We have parents with their daughters and sons. Like this is what we do. And This Is Hardcore is literally a family reunion for us in Philadelphia and for so many people. So it's integral that we have a space where it's just where the socializing, the catching up. And I mean, it's all, I'm a big purveyor of, hey, go in and watch the band. But hey, you may only have 3 hours of socializing with a friend you're not going to see from across the world until next year, the next time you're running. So it's also super important that we have this kind of space. And it was weird at first because I'm like, wow, a lot of people weren't watching this band. But it's also, I had to just say, hey, listen, this is their time. It's their money and they're happy. They're doing it. And it also gives us the opportunity to like, I put so many bands on the bill because I'm still from the era of like, ooh, a $20 show. We better make sure it's worth the $20. So like, as we start charging $45 a day, I want to make sure the money that we charge attendees goes to the bands. And I also want to make sure that they get their bang for their buck. The consequences of that is 15-minute changeovers, 15-minute sets for a lot of the earlier bands. So there's so much music. I don't really expect everybody to watch every single band. And that's why we put the tents and we have the food trucks and we've done so much crazy stuff to make people who aren't enjoying the inside show still be able to see it. Like we had the big blow up screen when the sun goes down, and I love it. And it's become a feature that so many people enjoy from our fest.
Yeah, I think it's just a testament to the era that we live in now, and it's the same at like you go to a baseball game and you think, oh, why are there all these empty seats? Well, these people are at the stadium. There's just other things going on. It's the event that people are attending. But let me ask you, let's take a left turn here, and let's talk about how you came up. Did you grow up in a musical household, and how did hard music come into your life?
I mean, you're looking at that shirt, and that's it. My mother wrote graffiti in the late 1970s. She was a teenager when she had me. So my house was full of whatever the young music was at the time, and some stuff from the 70s like Earth, Wind and Fire and classic rock. And my mother being involved in the Philadelphia hair metal scene immediately brought some guys around that were also in the metal. And I would say my first love was Metallica. And as you see in that picture, that's literally a shirt I got for Christmas. Like that's what I was, like,
that is awesome.
And I also, like, a week later got kicked out of class for having the shirt because it had ass on it. And that's the thing I would say it impactfully was being exposed to music. I remember staying up and watching like reruns of Soul Train and live music. And then my mother worked in clubs. There was always bands coming through the house. And on the weekends, obviously I was still young. So my older cousins, when Headbangers Ball would come around, I mean, we'd all sit there and watch it. It was integral to our house music being played. And you had mentioned Cinderella. My mom was friends with Tom Kiefer. My mom loved was that Night Songs. Brittany Fox was from Philadelphia.
Yeah,
like
right. Yep.
I always say that my house from like 1988 until like 1992 was nothing but heavy metal music and strippers running around, and it's kind of what it was. And it gave me an opportunity to kind of be exposed to a lot of the stuff sooner. And so because my mother was involved in music and we lived in a bad neighborhood, she was like, look, I don't care. Get out of this neighborhood. So we would go into small shows at a club called the Cell Block, where they had like death metal Sunday matinees for all ages. And then we would go down to any of the bigger rock concerts. I mean, I had a couple different people that my moms were friends with that took us to see everything from like Kiss, AC/DC, and then, that would turn into Skid Row. And then by the time the early 90s would come on, we would be able to start going to shows on our own. And we went and seen like Skid Row tour with Pantera. And then little by little, as we were getting exposed to South Street and the South Street culture, hardcore punk kind of started being also a thing on the radar. I got a tape from somebody that my mom was going to college with, and I heard Agnostic Front and Carnivore. And once Biohazard and the Cro-Mag stuff was starting to get on Headbangers Ball, it started shifting me. Yeah, that's a picture from me in 1990. By that, my haircut, I shaved my head in 96. So that would be either late 96 or early 97 when I shaved my head. And in a weird situation, I ended up being a father at a very young age. And I was kind of bummed out because I'm like, fuck, I'm going to have to get a job and not go to shows. And we got to go see the AF reunion in 96. And that was, instead of being like a swan song for me, at 16, I was like, if Agnostic Front's back, fuck this, I'm back. And I started really going crazy into shows.
I'm all about it then.
Yeah, literally, that was all it. Like, I shaved my head that like winter. I'm going to fucking Agnostic Front, But a metal was always the outlier first interest. And then because of Philadelphia, because of South Street, and because of the fact that my first year of high school, I was going to school downtown. Yeah, there's a good picture of my friends, The Real Deal. And so, like everybody else, you meet your first friends in hardcore who are in bands, and then, the kind of like the local bands, and then you kind of go from there. And that's me literally at 16 years old singing along for my friends' bands. And the excitement of hardcore, like between going to South Street and looking at zines, buying the occasional CD, seeing bands. My first actual hardcore show was that Sick of It All Biohazard Sheer Terror show that hit the TLA. And I've been going to a lot of metal shows, and I've never seen a crowd like that and an energy like that. And soon after that,
where was that? What venue was that?
That's the Theater of Living Arts in Philadelphia.
Right.
And I mean, after that, it was like, this is what I want. And it was kind of weird because I had a lot of friends who were into Dungeons and Dragons and smoking weed and sitting in the basement. And at some point, I had to kind of pick between like, do I want to stay like a neighborhood metalhead kid, or I want to, but the shows just had it. But I got lucky that so many people had to go on our train station. We live right at the first train, like the first elevated train station stop. So we would get on for a show and we'd see this person with t-shirts, this person with t-shirts. And so we started linking up that way. And I'm telling you, within 2 or 3 years, we could fill 2 whole L cars up with kids from our neighborhood going down to downtown for a show.
Philly's an interesting place, man. It really is, in a certain regard. Even to this day, I feel like Philadelphia, whereas sort of like New York, had a 9/11, and Boston had the bombing, and other cities, Philly has really sort of remained very insular, and there's a certain character. Philly has a real certain character to it. That, you know, to this day. Yeah, I know we talked a little. I know Biohazard's big in your world. It's big in mine.
Yeah, the biggest.
And
Biohazard
Chromags
tattoo on my elbow.
Yeah.
I love them.
You know what? Let's talk about some of the some of those old Philly venues. I know the Troc. I mean, I remember when I was sort of rolling around with Biohazard. You know, they would come and play the Troc when I was managing Marauder. You know, there was the Troc, and another one we mentioned. I know it's not Philly per se. Was in Music. What was the venue?
Yeah, the CC's.
Yeah,
CC and Music. So it's interesting that Philadelphia at the time would get a couple of the major tours. There was a smaller room, JC Dobbs. Previous to that, there was the Revival Club. And before that was actually Unisound in Reading. So Unisound in Reading and City Gardens in Trenton were both outside of the city, but they would get a lot of the hardcore tours. Like they got the Youth of the Days, they got Judge, they got Gorilla Biscuits,
Circle Jerks, and
Circle Jerks would come through Philly on like some tours, but I think the majority of those shows would happen at the City Gardens and Unisound, with the exception of the occasional TLA. And then, so for the kind of hardcore that my friends were playing and the people that were traveling a lot, was a mixture of, we were either going into the middle of New Jersey for Middlesex County College shows, because those were just like the big shows, or we were going up to CC's because so many bands that we loved that were New York hardcore inspired, that's where they would get billed. Like you had to go to, you know, Marauder played the Trocadero with Starkweather opening for Fear Factory, and the only other time they played,
I was there. I remember that for sure.
Yeah, that was the first time they played on the Troc stage, and then another time they played with later on in the late '90s. So like CC's was a smaller room, but they were way more open to the Fury of Fives, the Madballs, the Blood for Bloods, Cold as Life. Like every '90s band had a better shot at playing CC's because it was a B market, and Vince, the booker / owner, would pay the bands to come in. I mean, I
remember Vince. It was like a family-run operation, right? It was like Vince is the booker. Didn't his wife run the door and his son like make the food? It was like literally the most family-run hardcore operation ever.
And that was it. And so there was a multiple shows, and then just like anything else, like you start getting a track where you go see your friends and you start meeting people. And I mean, at the same time, where I'm saying we were traveling to CC's, there were tons of shows. I mean, the impetus for me to book a show is I seen Maximum Penalty at the Ferenz. And I thought Maximum Penalty would like be one of the biggest shows, and it wasn't. And I said some snotty comment to the dude, Mike. I'm like, oh, we could have brought more people here with our neighborhood bands. And he gave me a stack of like these, look like Monopoly tickets. And he's like, you pick 4 bands and you sell these tickets and we'll have a show. And that kind of became the beginning of, for us, starting to put our shows on. But I mean, there was always shows, and that's the thing. Like, even as early as like the Love Hall shows are really iconic.
Yeah.
There was iconic bands in the earliest stages of Philadelphia hardcore, but by the time that I came into play, you either had to see a hardcore band in a really DIY spot, and there was tons of them. I mean, the Cabbage Collective was running shows from the Kill Time to the Baltimore Ave churches. There was always stuff going on, but when you're a 12 and 13-year-old kid, you see the flyer on South Street and that's what you go to. Yeah. And then between zines and different stuff, it was much more underground. And there was tons of shows that I probably missed that were in houses. I mean, even in like 94 or 95, bands like Ignite and Strife were playing in people's houses still, or like in Josh's house in New Jersey. So by proxy of my age, when I was finding this stuff, there was tons of stuff probably going on that I was just like not hip to because I was still too young. But I mean, what would happen is, I always feel as if the time where I started really getting hard on the hardcore, I mean, you had the Kill Time running as a little bit, then the Stalag open, which the Stalag looked like a garage in West Philly. Oh yeah, here's me in Unity Street Hall. So
tell us about Unity Street Hall. Is that
Yeah. So, local neighborhood guys who my mom was friends with, like an after-hour hall. I was talking about doing shows, and my mom had promoted some metal shows and run the calendar at a bar. And she's like, well, my friends will let you run this, do shows at a club. And so, we were doing some shows with their friends where you'd have 4 bands and everyone would have to sell at least 15 tickets and give the money to Mike so the show would happen. But eventually we literally fucked that whole club up, smashed everything, and that was the end of that place. But I wanted to do like a hardcore show. I would travel, and I seen shows in New Jersey, seen shows in Delaware, seen shows in Reading with the Chris Mahmood put on, and they were all in Hall. So I got a chance to rent this place for $200 in March of '97. And that was the beginning of what I always say, like the beginning of me as a promoter doing it. My flyer said,
And you were
Joe
15?
Hardcore.
You were 15?
No, I was 15 at the Friends time when we were bringing all our bands together. But
Okay.
17, I was 16 turning 17 when I did my first show in March and 97. And from that was kind of like, this is a neighborhood you wouldn't drive down. And then now the kids would call it like a trap block. But we did a bunch of shows there. The biggest was 25 to Life and in that winter, and that was fucking nuts. But we also had like Mushmouth and a bunch of bands come down. And for us, it was a lot of fun because people I'm still friends with, our whole neighborhood would come to the show. And that was kind of like the funny thing is guys would come from New York and guys would come down from PA, and it'd be just like a different borough. Like, only it's a bunch of neighborhood kids, and half of them this was their first start in seeing punk and hardcore shows. But these people would go ahead and they would become the guys who sang for Blacklisted, the band Horror Show, which is now nothing. The impetus were a lot of music that would come later. It came from these first shows that we were putting on in our neighborhood churches. And there was other church halls that we did, but Unity was always special because that was our first, and that was the biggest place we did. And then I think they were trying to get out of the neighborhood just because the neighborhood started shifting at that point, so they didn't rent the hall out, and now it's owned by somebody else.
This wasn't the infamous Kensington, was it?
Oh, this is right out. This is literally where Frankfurt Ave turns into Kensington. This is like a merge. Okay. This is like one block that merges Juniata, Kensington, Frankfurt all into one corner. So on any given night, we'd have a show and there'd be a fight down the street. Yeah. Like there was one Come and Correct the Mushmouth show where they pulled up and they thought it was a big show fight, but it was literally half the block fighting as an open fire. A fire plug was happening. Everyone's like, "What the fuck is that?" I'm like, "Oh, this is in the neighborhood, man. This is what it is."
We had Nancy Barile on the show talking about some famous minor threat fight in Kensington and the dead Kennedys. The neighborhood, someone in the neighborhood like threw a bomb in the venue. I mean, it's like
so what happened is the venue Club Pizzazz, which is in between my house and where Unity Hall is. That was right on the border of the neighborhood. So some parts of the block were like dudes like my uncle would sit out with a bat and be like, if these punk rockers come down here, we're going to fuck them up. But Henry wrote about it in his book, talking about the time when a government issue came down and they got into a big fight and the neighborhood attacked them. That was very common all the time. Another neighborhood venue that we had, which we did a couple shows at, was the Frankfurt Y, which is the first time Sick of It All and Raw Deal came down, and that's like a big kerfluffle. There was a lot of drama about that show, but that was like a big thing. But we did tons of shows there. Our neighborhoods were always where people came from. I mean, we had the Brick House guys, we had the Pagan Babies guys, we had the Arresting Officers guys, the Lime Cell guys. That always bands all from the neighborhoods, but most of the bigger attractions would always stay downtown, so to speak, or in like West Philly. They had house shows. There's so many houses or so many small places that over the years, depending on what place or what house or what time you're kind of attached to, this is my time. I was at whether a Kill time in like 88, 92, or then it would have came back in the end of the 90s. You can kind of date people now by what clubs they were going to when they were doing shows, you know?
Hey, let's talk about a little bit of music and what's happening here.
This is the day we left for our tour. Punishment started specifically me and Mike Brown, my brother. I'm in the beautiful gold change and red bandana. Me and Mike,
and the shorts, man. Those and the clam diggers. My mom would call them.
So we were roadies for Dysphoria, and that was the beginning of us. That was really the beginning of us traveling. And I got to meet the Cold as Life guys. We went up to Boston, met all the Boston guys. When Dysphoria got the U.S. tour put together, they asked us to come on the road. We would sell merch, but during Dysphoria, we would really mosh and kick everybody, and it was awesome. And me and Mike made a plan to make sure that our band was on tour within 1 year and come back and play Gilman Street. And so we started the band, we played some shows, and we're fucking going back on tour. And Mike and Sam, the original guitarist and drummer, they were like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. So the guys on the right side of the, or the left side of the picture, rather, they were the next guys in, next drummer, next guitar. Fuck it, we're doing this.
Okay.
You know, like Dan was in a band, a bunch of bands, and he still is in music. And Tarzan, the guy with no shirt and no feet, his literally name is Mike Tarzan. We met him for about 4 weeks of practice in Dan's house before the tour. And like many Punishment members, we've never seen him ever again. He's probably like number 1 of 7 guys who played in Punishment for a tour. And the minute we got in the van, we never saw them ever again.
Well, I got a great quote. Quote, Punishment is a hardcore band from Philadelphia that has had more drummers than Spinal Tap and left more vans on the side of America's highway than we care to mention.
I mean, that's a complete truth. That van right there was our first van, and somehow that specifically was the only van that made it more than one tour. Yeah, there's us at Gilman Street, and there's my beautiful hair for that moment.
Yeah.
Chris DeSoria got married 3 weeks before that. We went on tour, and me and Mike were joking around to get our hairs braided, and he got cornrows, so I got that done before the wedding. And I left my hair in so I could go ahead and be on that U.S. tour. Is this Gilman? In San this
Francisco?
is literally the epitome of a dream accomplished. Like me and Mike went to Gilman Street. We were so happy just to be at this place. And then when we came to that show, me and Mike looked at each other and like, all right, we did it. We said we would come back and play this with our own band. And our first tour, we did it with New Jersey Bloodline. So it was extra special because those guys are really good friends of us. And there's a lot of memories from that. And so, yeah, that was like, if we would have only done that, I probably would have been happy. But we got so excited from doing it. What happened is we just constantly toured with crazy members and bad situations. And I learned everything about what I know about touring and being a strategic, building your band up from doing everything wrong with Punishment.
There you go. It's like I can relate. It's like being a film, a documentary filmmaker. I've made every mistake possible at this point.
Yeah, literally. You got to learn. I learned everything backwards.
Right. Is this here? This is a late. I know this is a way later shot, but is this a Punishment? Would you call this a Is this a reunion shot? Did you guys do reunions every now and then?
So when Punishment plays now, specifically, I really enjoy a nice benefit show. If you ever want to get me to do something, it's not money. And obviously Punishment, we have our time where people loved us and young kids are really starting to get into us. Mm-hmm. But if you want me to play something, which is where the impetus to do Shattered Realm came back, is with a benefit show. Benefit shows are the keystone of what our scene can give to our own people. And, you know, obviously pre GoFundMe, that was the biggest money maker and the way we can help our friends. So multiple times Punishment's gotten back together, like that video you shared in the beginning. That was a video of a kids benefit show, and they were like, hey, would Punishment play? And that's literally where I'm going to say, yes, okay, it's for a benefit, I'll do it. And so I will say, since we're talking on the show, and there's probably people listening, that after 22 years of not playing, in February 20th, 2022, Punishment's going to play with the original guys. Now, Sam, our original drummer, died. Sam, our original drummer, died, which is the one of 3 drummers that we have dead. So the next person in line was Dan. So, and Dan did the first U.S. tour and was a big integral part of the band as well. So we got to get some things together, get everybody on board. But the plan is February 20th, 2022, which is 22 years from our very first show, to play one show.
Any idea where that would be, or would just
the First Unitarian Church? Yeah, it's already set up. I just been quiet about it because I didn't want to jinx, but the boys are moving. Mike and Dan, who've never played in the band, are working on things. Damien lives in London, is a very respected tattooer. He's going to fly home and play it. It's going to be fucking. And Mike Brown, he said he'll be involved. We just got to get everybody on board. But it's the first time we're going to play as this. And there's no world dominations. There's no 40-day tour, which is everybody in the band is either have been married, have kids, the whole 9 yards. But it's one good time. And I mean, to kind of cap the Punishment stuff, We were young kids who really just wanted to tour. We got lucky with dysphoria. We met really great friends. We go to California, the powerhouse guys looked out. When we were in the Midwest from Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, like we did a tour with Ringworm, and we were like, I had a 15-year-old drummer and a 16-year-old guitar player. And we met all of our friends, and everything that would later help me with booking This Is Hardcore all came because I did all these tours with Punishment, and it all came from dysphoria. I mean, it was I never did anything right, like the right way to do things, but everything that I did because of the touring with Punishment would give me so much more in life. And then with later on with shows, it's like pre-social networking when you had to physically meet everybody. There wasn't a town we didn't play. There wasn't bands we didn't play with at the time, all four corners. We just never went to Europe as Punishment. But
doing my homework, I came across this quote of yours that you said, you're grateful for the opportunity to go around the world, despite the fact that you didn't come from a family that had a lot of money. And I can relate to that. Just music gave me the opportunity to get out and see the world,
I mean, that's so on our podcast, Ernie Talbert, who's a longtime friend, and he's a very successful person, brought up access and exposure. So we got access to being able to travel, and the exposure changed our lives. In Philadelphia, most of us and our neighborhoods and our generation, you either go up the mountains or down the shore. You go to the Pocono Mountains, CC's, or you go down the shore, Wildwood or Asbury, whatever the fuck you go. And that's all we do. That's all Philadelphia is known for. So by contrast, most of my generation and my cousins and, like local friends, like I might as well have been fucking Marco Polo because I've been to Europe. I toured, I don't know how many times in the US with bands. And it changed the way I look at life.
Absolutely.
It changed the way I feel about hardcore as a whole and the fabric of way it's all woven in. I mean, the fact that we got to tour with Powerhouse and Ringworm, it's just like we were kids. Like literally, I was 21 years old helping Royce get shows for the Powerhouse tour. Like I was 23 booking some of the shows for the Ringworm tour, and that really just changed. Yeah. And it all starts with doing shows. And then here's Anthony. Anthony was a kid. He's now a grown ass man, but like we passed this stuff on. So I'm always proud that people that I looked up to, like, the Powerhouse guys, the Ringworm guys, Dysphoria, Cold as Life, Diecast. There's so many bands. Like everybody always looked out for us. I don't know if it's because we were half retarded and just young or we were passionate, but we always got love, and it was, it really helped mold things. And in fact, when Punishment was rolling, Shattered Realms started, and I had Joe and a couple of the guys in the band did some stuff, but they didn't really travel. So I really helped in the early stages just get Shattered Realm because Eric Cooper helped them start getting some shows. And later I would book a Shattered Realm, Bad Luck 13 tour. And 2 summers in a row, either Punishment or Shattered Realm dropped off, but we were always trying to tour together. Yeah, there's me with my awesome court hair. And again, another benefit show. We're playing a benefit show here in Brooklyn at that big venue. And it's
and for those that may not know what court hair is.
Oh yeah. So I was in the middle of a criminal situation, and my lawyer said, "You look like a serial killer skinhead. Please grow some hair so you look presentable when you go in front of the judge." So I would grow massive amounts of mounds of hair and then shave it up just so that way I looked like not a maniac.
Right, so. Not like a serial killer when you go into court,
So yeah, that was me in my court hair and my Hawaiian shirt.
Lenny says 2 points, Asian Alex.
Yeah, and there he is in the background.
Yeah, Jason says rest in peace, Ernie Cortez. Yeah, court hair.
Ernie said the coolest thing in the world. And I saw Monster Ryan in the comments as well. And he was like, talk about the promoter. We had to go to his house in Texas. And I
didn't feel like that. I didn't feel like it was appropriate yet to put
Nah. It was a young kid. It was a young kid who did the show, and we show up and he wasn't there. So we go out in his front lawn. It's all Punishment and Powerhouse. And the dad came out, put up the fazoles, and we were back on the road. But like, he thinks that one was funnier is we were supposed to play in San Antonio. That was the show he's talking about. So that day we were walking around, and Ernie loved strip clubs. He wanted to go to the strip club so bad, but Monster didn't have his ID or a t-shirt with sleeves. So what happened is Ernie tried to tip the person to let Walter in without a t-shirt, like without a ID, and bought him like a tourist t-shirt, and then the guy still wouldn't let him in. And so we were walking around, and Ernie's so mad. I'm like, dude, let's go look at records. We can check out some colored vinyl. And Ernie goes, the only colored vinyl I want to see is coming up a stripper's ass. Still the fucking greatest line from him. But go. We're Punishment. We're in a fucking van. We're sleeping on our gear, and we're touring with Powerhouse. We're like grown men, accomplished musicians, like have their shit together. It's like I can't believe that we got to pull that and the Ringworm one off. I mean, the Ringworm tour ended with our van being completely on fire on the side of the road. It's literally how it ended in California.
That's perfect.
Yeah, and so
they should all end that way.
So we end on the side of the road. A couple weeks later, I'm back home. I'm in love. Me and my girlfriend get back together. Me and my dad are killing it working. Got like a side business going. Things are going well. And the Shadow Realm asked me to do Europe, and I said nope, my life's good. And then a year later, I'm saying I'm going to do one more tour with Punishment, which turned out to be Blacklisted's first tour. And I got the call from Shadow Realm. Yo, we have a whole nother tour. I know you said no. You just jump on and help us on this tour. So I joined Shadow Realm in 2004. And that was something that, because I kind of knew what we didn't do right with Punishment, Shadow Realm did the smart thing, and they signed to Alvaran/Eulogy. And so they had European wheels spinning because Alvaran was the base for a lot of what got that band popular in Europe. And Joe was like, oh, we're thinking about going to Europe again. And that was one thing I always wanted to do, was just tour Europe one time. And so in the ashes
too. Back then in those years, it was a really great time to, they were so hungry for that kind of music over there, it was great.
Well, so like what was kind of fucking me up, to be honest, because we had done more US tours than a lot of the bands that were starting in 2004 to play Europe. And the tour bookers were like, oh, no one knows you here. And I'm like looking at friends of mine's band, like I'm friends with these guys, and they got a demo tape and they're playing Europe with a different booker. And I'm like, how the fuck are these guys going to Europe?
Yeah.
We had 2 records out, and I understand now a lot more. We weren't a buzz band. We were the fucking goon band. Like,
right.
We knew everybody, but we knew who we played for. We weren't the popular band. So in Europe with Shadow Realm, it was a lot different. And we did a couple good US tours. And then we had to focus on European touring. And then I think for me, realistically, looking at the band, unless you're going to be a profitable and presentable professional band, like a lot of the successful bands, you can only do it as a hobby. And I got really involved in home life, in union work. And another thing that started to happen is between 2001 to 2004, the contacts made from constantly touring with Punishment were bringing in more opportunities to do more shows. Like I was doing a lot of shows in our neighborhoods, but I started getting better rooms. And I kind of liked working. I always loved working. I never had like an office job. I always worked in construction, doing different shit. But I liked the routine life. It made me happier, even though I also thought, they're me at the oil refinery.
You're a union man, correct?
Yeah, union concrete guy. And so at a certain time, you have to make a choice. Do you want to try to be the next Terror, or do you want to do things because you love them and make them work? And so Sean Agnew from R5 Productions, who is the greatest DIY promoter that I know, and literally lives like his own life completely on DIY punk ethics. And so he saw that there was more hardcore shows coming to the church, and we started doing security. And I kept saying like, yo, you should let me do a show here. Let me help out. And he not only let me put on shows at the First Unitarian Church, which let me means he gets to hold, if the show was under R5 Productions, God forbid there was problems, which there was, he would get sued. Like he put up a lot of shit to teach us and teach me specifically like the next evolution of being a promoter. And the minute I could go on tour, maybe in the wintertime, work all year, and then put these shows on, it really changed me. And then finally in 2005, Hellfest New Jersey shut down. Last minute, not happening. And we as security and just like extra help through Sean R5, who booked I think for 4 shows in 2 days. I couldn't believe that there was going to be a fest in Philadelphia.
What year was
that That was the summer of 2005.
Okay.
Hellfest completely fell apart in Trenton, New Jersey, but Sean and them saved the bills, and they did some amazing shows. And we worked like 2.5 days straight helping out. And afterwards, I said to Sean, would you want to do a fest next year? And he was like, I don't want to do one, but I'll show you how I think it should work, and I'll be your partner. But like, I you know, like, and it was kind of like, that's why it says like R5 presents. And
Well,
I am not the person. I am not me because of my own acumen. Everything that I've done is always off the backs of mentors and people who came before me who were, I don't know why, you know, like, honestly, like, I met Sean obviously through him putting on shows. The first time we really got along, there was a sold out show at the church with like 900 people and like, I think 400 he wasn't letting in, and we were scary. So we told everybody to go the fuck home. And he was like, all right, this kid's not a complete asshole. And, you know, same thing though. There was many times where Sean would scream and yell at me, dude, can't beat these guys up. You guys are problems. You know, like we went back and forth plenty of times, but he always had love. And the 2 times I've been arrested, and 2 times Sean bailed me out, like put bail money up. Like, that's was like one of my other great mentors. But it was through that really kind of showed me like, wait, I don't have to do a full US tour to get my like vibes out. I could go book these shows, do these things. Shadow Realm would still play, but it became less important for me to be on the road and doing things to feel like I was still connected to hardcore, because as I got more serious in booking shows, I found a deeper connection and was all relating back to doing the tours, the people I met, and that weird synergy that comes from people you meet 10 years later than in this other band, or, oh, I met you. Hey, I'm actually booking these bands. You
put in your road work, man. You know, it's like the same sort of thing. And I can relate to it with, you know, the early days when I was in the High and the Mighty and playing A7 and CBGBs and playing, you know, for early shows with the Chromac, and just playing and meeting people and doing music videos. And then you put in the road work, man. And then it's there. Now I'm going to tease this because we got to take a break, but we're going to tease this. We're going to come back from the break. We're going to do record of the day, and then let's talk about This Is Hardcore and how that was set into motion and the incredible legacy that you have created. We'll talk to you in a bit.
All right.
Well, there you have it. Joe Hardcore on today's show. This is great. Philadelphia represent. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live, and we are sponsored by New York Hardcore Comics, the Organic Grill, Chain Reaction Records, the Texas Silver Rush, DTFM Vinyl Distro, Chacho's Tacos, and Generation Records. Hello. Generation Records, since 1992, has been a mainstay of the New York metropolitan area music scene. Today, they offer a diverse selection of new and used rock, jazz, indie, hip-hop, punk, hardcore, metal, blues, soundtrack, and reggae LPs, as well as T-shirts, posters, and other merchandise. They buy used record collections and music memorabilia and will pay you top dollar for them. House calls made for large collections in the tri-state area. Call or email generationrecords@gmail.com and follow them on Facebook or Instagram. Chacho's Tacos, located in Corpus Christi, Texas, opened the doors in 2001, home of the almighty Chacho's Taco. They cook up an incredible home-style Tex-Mex food, and this month they're celebrating their 20th anniversary. They've been supporting underground music since the beginning, and in their own words, we ain't stopping anytime soon. Touring bands that play Corpus Christi, swing by and get a home-cooked meal at Chacho's Tacos. The underground scene will never die. You're darn tootin'. Please follow us on Facebook or on Instagram. Want to mention a couple of upcoming shows, a couple more. The next, as we say, the next 4 on Sunday, August 22nd. You asked for it, you got it. A little bit of a Biohazard reunion. Joe Hardcore, one of Joe Hardcore's favorite bands. Of course, one of my favorite bands. Bobby Hambel, Danny Schuler, and Billy Graziadei will be coming on the show, talking about the 30th anniversary of Urban Discipline. So that's going to be great. Wednesday, August 25th, Joel Ghostin, author and musician, will be on the show. Sunday, August 29th, Vic Venom, Old school punk rock represent. Nausea, Sacrilege, Chaos UK, Reagan Youth, Hellbent, Coffin Daggers, DIYing Breed, Vic Venom. Silent Waters Run Deep. Looking forward to Vic Venom. And then, of course, Walter Monster Ryan on Wednesday, September 8th. We see you in the chat room, Walter. Appreciate it. Looking forward to having you on the show. Listen, Bobby Hamble ramped up his game. He's got a laptop and he's coming on the show. So there you go. Yes, Bobby is coming on. That said, what else? Hey, Arnolfo, what's up? Chacho's Tacos. There you go. What's happening in Corpus Christi, brother? We want to come down and play. Yep, Monster's coming on. So what about getting Evan for the Biohazard show? Well, you never know. Stranger things have happened. We'll see. We'll see what happens, man. Can't make any guarantees here, but we're certainly going to reach out to him and ask if he'd like to be a part of it. I want to remind everyone, or if someone's coming through these parts for the first time, there is a Patreon way to support the show, if I could find it. There is a Patreon page. I want to shout out some of my latest patrons, Linda Nardelli, Jeff Steiner, and Marcus at Punk Oi Hardcore on Instagram. Please support this show. What else can I say? Do a lot of hard work to make these shows happen. I love it. You love it. We love it. Let's go. Please support the show. If you're watching in a rerun, there is a subscribe button right there. Subscribe to Stone Films NYC YouTube page. This way you get alerts when a new show is happening and what's going on with that. There is merch. Perhaps you want the New York Hardcore mug or the New York Hardcore shower curtain, or the Do Good Things, the Good Things Will Come to You shirt, or maybe an Antidote NYHC shirt. I don't know. It's a kooky world. Perhaps you want one of these items. There is a merch strip underneath the show. If you see it down there, I can't see it. Maybe you can. That said, will there be a Drew Stone only fans page? No, there won't. What else? Give the man some coin. Don't be a lurking fuck. Listen, I love what I'm doing. I'm very fortunate to be doing something that I love. I want to thank all my patrons and everybody out there. Hey, we got also on Patreon every other Wednesday, we do a Patreon only show. We also put up stuff on Patreon that is not out in the public. It's our community within a community. So, A. Steen, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Drumming Moose says, would love to see past and present members of Kill Your Idols on the show. My favorite New York hardcore band. All right. Duly noted. You know, at some point, we got to do, who do you want to see on the show? We'll do that. We'll do that pretty soon. What else? There is a super chat. Joe Hardcore's coming on. We're going to do questions for the last half hour of the show. Super chat is a way you can support the show, and it comes up in color and I can't miss it. And we put it right to the top and your question will get asked. Rob Lynn, Blood for Blood. It's come up a lot. Rob's name. Yep. He is on the list. Listen, we're going to get to everybody on this planet sooner than later. So that said, I think I covered everything. Want to shout out Women in the Pit, Lori Dawn and everybody. Shouting out Women in the Pit, of course, and Upstate Rick and the comments crew and all that. That said, is everybody okay? All right, let's not turn it into who do you want to see right now. Leave it. Jeff and Rage. Jeff and Rage, I think I've talked to him about it, you know. Derek Neglect. Hold your horses. Let's stay focused. Stay focused, goddammit. Don't make me eat your flesh, Phil Collins. All right, calm down. You know what? Get on Patreon, will you? And support the fucking show while you're at it. Let's clear the deck. What the heck? Let's bring our guests back on. And we will do album of the week with Sid the Kid. Let me get rid of these banners. Stay on target. I know it's hard. It's hard to stay focused in this time. Let's bring on Sid the Kid. What's up, Sid?
What's up, Drew? What's going on?
All right. What do you say?
What do you say, boss? What do you say?
You're kind of freezing. You're kind of freezing already. You're stuttering.
Me? No, I think it might be you.
All right, you ready to do record of the day? Let's bring our guest back on. Joe Hardcore. Hey, Joe.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, Joe.
What's going on, Joe?
I saw that you answered in the chat room, but what's your local?
I am a local 592 proud cement mason out of Philadelphia.
There you go. There you go. Let's do record of the week with Sid the Kid. Here we go. Sid, what's up with this? Boom. Go ahead, Sid.
Blow, guys. Well, I had to do something a little different today, so I wanted to throw this one out, being true to what the theme is here today and having Joe on. This album speaks to a lot of us, especially within 2021, and that is Bull's first full-length album entitled Speak Out. This was recorded and mixed at Electric Reels Studios in Pleasant Valley, New York, from, I believe, March to December of 1987, which obviously came out in early 1988 with Dan Nichols producing this. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it originally did come out on Revelation, but was supposed to come out on Wishing Well, but some stuff happened, so obviously Revelation picked out the album. So, some photos that you do see on this album itself were taken by Alex Brown, who was also in Side by Side, and later on Gorilla Biscuits, who, rest in peace, is not with us here today. Prior to the name Bold itself, this band was known as Crippled Youth. For those who don't know, they had an EP, I believe, a couple of years before, and I believe in about 87 or so, they changed the name from Crippled Youth to Bold. But, the album itself is one, mainly when you hear the name itself is Straight Utters. Even though they're not the bigger straight edge bands of New York at the time, people knew about this band. But the album itself really, is just mainly when it comes to, lyrical content, it just speaks to a lot of people. And, musically, it falls in line with the same formula, which most bands did at the time. But, in all reality, especially when it comes, lyric wise, it comes from the heart, and that's what matters most. And, this album, even to me, I'm not the biggest fan of the band itself. Not really say that in a bad way, but the album is pretty good, and lyrically it does, it just reaches out and grabs my attention. Oh, I can't hear you, Drew.
Sorry.
Okay.
I must say that I'm not all that familiar with this record. I know some of the stuff. I know a couple of the guys, but this isn't a record I'm super familiar with. Hey, Joe Hardcore, any comments on this? Or you're a straight edge guy, right?
Yep, 22 years.
22 years. Any take on Bold or sort of the straight? We can talk about the straight edge thing in general.
Well, when it comes to, if we're talking about this record, the thing is I always say the same thing, is that you have the fan base that's like going to always either wear the Youth of Today or the Gorilla Biscuit shirt. And I always say, like, in Beavis and Butthead, right, they got the kid, he shows up with the Winger shirt. And I always feel like no matter what, the Bold fan is as close to Stewart and the Winger shirt as we get in a hardcore reference. And Sean Youngblood's my boy, and he rides so hard for Bold. There's so many dudes that ride hard for Bold, but the thing about it is the first 4 tracks off of this motherfucker are bangers. But it's like, it's always like, you have to be a special kind of dude that goes like, nah, man, Bold's better than GB or Youth of Today. This is the real, like, and I think that it just comes from like but it's an inner punk rock thing to not want to be like everybody else. Yeah. So there's entire personalities built around being that Bold's better than everybody. That being said, Talk Is Cheap, into Now to the X, into Now or Never, boom, boom, boom. Great, fucking absolutely great shit. But when Tom Capone joined the band, they added a different sound. Yeah. And so you're either in 2 camps if you talk Bold. You either in, Speak Out was great. Some internet people will go ahead and they'll be like, I really like the Crippled Youth record better, but who the fuck actually had that? Or who actually fucking saw Crippled Youth? Such a small minority. Yeah. So for me, when I think about when I think about the Bold, this is what Bold is. It's speak out. Later, the thing with Tom Capone was sick. If you're into the transition out of a traditional hardcore sound, I think it's important that, like, yo, of course it comes out in 1988, like the year that every fucking straight edge band was at their high part. You know, like if this came out 2 years before, it might have been like groundbreaking, but it hadn't. It came out in that year where there were so many records that I think that Bold is going to stand out because of this record, and anything that comes after that, I'm not as interested in. And I would definitely put Nail to the X. I would put Now or Never as like tracks that really fucking blow up. But anything else after that, I wouldn't listen to. I had the chance to book Bold with Breakdown at the church in Philly, and it was so sad. There was like a fucking major storm, and it literally weakened the amount of people we were hoping to have. So I'm actually looking to have Bold come back just because out of love. Matt, that guy's a great guy, great front man. And I think the message of bands like Bold at that time empowered people. The thing that we kind of dismiss in hardcore sometimes because we're all trying to be againsters is you're trying to be an againster with a crowd of people that are like you. Yeah. And we're not. I mean, I found hardcore as an early teen. I found messages and things that got me through bands. If I'm watching Manowar, which is a band I love, I didn't grow up with nobody that looked like Manowar, but I definitely grew up with dudes that looked like the Biohazard video and the Madball video. So that's what I like, I resonated towards. Likewise, there are some clean cut people. I've never smoked a cigarette in my life. There was like a year and a half where we got a little turned up. And I now look at some of these pictures that I was in with people, and I'm the only one alive out of 4 and 5 people in a picture. And I put that towards going straight edge and staying off drugs. I mean, our whole neighborhood has been ripped up by heroin before they called it the opioid epidemic, when it was straight as shithole and no one gave a fuck. And it's because of bands like Bold and people pushing the message that, hey, it's okay not to drink. That's also a punk rock message in itself, to be honest with you. And I think that the conflating points is, oh, well, you're following with everybody else. Well, yeah, so are you. What are you doing? Unless you're dressed up like a warlock in the middle of an agnostic front pick, you look like everybody else. You're following along. Let the guy not want to drink, and vice versa. Yeah, I have a lot of friends who are fucking maniacs. I mean, we toured with Powerhouse. We toured with Ringworm. They were not straight edge bands, but the same thing. And I've always been the straight edge dude in a room full of people who weren't straight edge. I have my personal beliefs, and I think that this record is iconic. I don't think that people will argue that. In the trifecta of New York hardcore bands, I think that Bold came right at that time where how many bands were doing it after them? Not so many, because it shifted. And they even shifted with it because of Tom Capone. So,
Sid, you got a show. Tell us about it real quick, and thank you.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. So, guys, if you missed last week, I'm doing another one here this coming Wednesday, August 4th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can go to mixlr.com/SDK sound system. If you're not, if you're on the computer, but also you can download it on your smartphone or whatever freaking device you have that takes one of these app things. I've been listening to a lot of new stuff the last couple of weeks and got some humongous like bangers like coming out for the show that I'm absolutely dying to hear. Like, for example, True Intentions, which is Johnny Ryu's new band out of Houston. Section Hate, they just put out a new LP. Just a bunch of stuff. I just been
aren't you DJing?
Listening.
Aren't you DJing at this show 2 weeks from today? Yay. You're DJing this, right?
Wait, was it a show, an actual show? Holy shit. Yeah, I believe I am.
Well, listen, let's hope so. Let's hope it's an actual show with all this, new strain, panic.
Knock on wood bullshit. Let's hope it gets through it though. You know what I'm saying, Drew?
Yeah. But you're
Drew, I do have one super quick shout out because I noticed shout out Sunday.
Go ahead.
Happy filthy 50th to Will Galliard, which is MA's old man out there. Happy birthday, Wim. It was definitely, hey, 50 years, you're gonna be here for another 50 more. That's all I gotta say. Okay,
well done, Sid. Thank you, buddy.
All right, thank you, Drew. Thank you, Joe. This has definitely been a walk down memory lane. Even though I'm from New York, Philly's basically my backyard, and I just always a great show, no matter what's been happening there. Even over the last 15 years, there's always been great shows, and there's even more coming up, and I'm looking forward to seeing a lot more coming out.
All right, let's not get carried away, Sid.
Hey, I just got
Good seeing you, Sid.
Thank you,
speak the
bro.
truth,
I'll talk
guys.
to you later, Sid.
All right, cheers, guys.
You're a good loyal soldier, Sid. Thank you, buddy.
Hey, I do what I can. Later
All
on.
right. All right. we survived. Hey, I just want to read from our friend Joe Ackerman down in Tallahassee, Florida. Straight edge is way more positive than anything negative. Drugs stole years from my life. Much respect to those that figured shit out. Even at my worst, albums like this gave me strength. And music will do that.
Absolutely.
You know,
This whole
music-
thing is about that. Otherwise, it would have died out in the first 5 years.
Yeah.
You know.
Now let me find that picture and let's jump into this. Let me find that. This is hardcore. Where is that? This is hardcore. Let's see. Where is that? Where has it gone? Give me a second. This is hardcore number 1. That would be it.
There it is.
Go. There it is. And I noticed. Let me instigate the conversation here. That This is Hardcore 1 was at a place that I'm not personally familiar with. I've never been there. The Starlight Ballroom. Tell us about that.
Sean Agnew, who again is like the pioneer of finding venues and just doing crazy shit, used to ride around on his bicycle all over the place and find venues. The side tidbit is on top of Sean booking shows and riding his bike all over the damn city. He actually used to have parties when Diplo, before he was ever famous, would just DJ in his actual apartment. I mean,
wow.
Literally, fucking Sean is not only just, he's a pioneer in all things. So he links up with this Asian family, and we get to deal with Mr. Chan, who's one of the craziest venue owners in the history of the world.
I love it already. Like Mr. Chan is the venue owner.
Mr. Chan.
I'm in.
Yeah, Mr. Chan literally is he has to have something to do with the gang shit, because his son was like a sport bike dude and like ran the parking lot. Yeah, and he had all these sport bikes.
His son was like a flying dragon or something. Right?
Dude, exactly. So like 2005, we go to run the security for Lifetime, and 108 reunion was the second show that day. We had a church show that day, was 108. The nighttime show was Lifetime. There was 1,400 people on the side of the street. It's a small little block, 1.5 blocks from the Electric Factory, one of the hottest summer days. And I was looking at Sean like, I don't know how this is going to go. The first show there that I saw was that show at the, it didn't even have a stage. It had like 3 step-ups, like a catering hall. So we're trying to work security and keep people specifically from crashing into the bands, but there's like a 2-foot gap between the first and third step. It was hot as hell. Mr. Chan somehow got more money out of Sean because he said too many people came and I could shut this whole place down. And that was constantly like the running theme with Chan, is he kept coming up with new crazy ass ideas where he had to give him more money. But like you could like
the world could end right now. I need more money.
Literally shut. He literally shut. And always extra hustles and like, you know. So I'm on tour with Shadow Realm. It's early 06, and I've been wanting to do a fest. And I start thinking about the bands that I knew would say yes. I started thinking about the bands that were coming up. Now, contrast to what This Is Hardcore would become, it started off as there were so many things that I didn't like about the Hellfest structure. You know, Hellfest would book these big non-hardcore bands, but sell it as a hardcore thing.
Sure.
Shadow Realm the year before played, and it was either you get paid $100 or you got in for free all 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we had thousands of people coming to these places. Unless you had some kind of juice with a manager or an agent, you know, a lot of these bands, I mean, there were a lot of bands who were unrepresented in the mid-2000s, and they were getting taken advantage of. And there were people like Keith from Hell who was making hand over fist, and there was constantly problems with the money. And so my thought process was calling it This Is Hardcore and bringing it to a DIY level and focusing on hardcore bands. And I think I talked to one booking agent to get any of these bands, and that was Terror. Only after they found out, the booking agent's like, hey, how's this going to work for Terror? They said they're playing this. Right. And the outset, it was about doing something DIY, putting bands on that I like. And there was also a precipice of change. You know, the bands from the early 2000s were dying out. If you're looking at some of these bands, look how low some of these bands are.
I
And this
see
is
Wisdom in Chains. I see down there.
yeah.
You know, Death Before Dishonor.
So
Runer.
the third band on the bill on Sunday was the band Ceremony, and they would end up blowing up. I mean, all these bands now, if I put this show on, people, this is one of the, minus some of the local bands, were some of the bands that would influence everything now, and so it's a cool snapshot. This ended up being the last time Think I Care played, besides one benefit show they play a couple years back. Was there a secret guest? Who was it? No, it was supposed to be Leeway, but it didn't work out. They were going to play. Right. Yeah. And so Terror was in, and I always say this: if Scott Vogel didn't believe in me, and I booked Buried Alive at a church in my neighborhood when I was 18. Wow. And so Scott, when Terror came out, he sent me a box of CDs and said, send me $2 back for every CD you sell. So I've been locked in with the Terror thing since even before it started.
That's awesome.
And so I Terror first show was in a house basement. And so we were always tight with them. And I said, hey man, I'm doing this fest, but I really need Terror to play. So we linked up and they played Boston the night before and Philly that night. And of course, let me interject that Fearless Vampire Killers, if I'm not mistaken, is that John Joseph, Mackie, absolutely, and the two Bad Brain excuse me, Daryl on bass and Dr. No, correct? Yeah, that show was that, and that's what happened is we were looking for a weekend. We got a weekend. Next thing you know, Gorilla Biscuits is the week before. We found out once we were rolling around and trying to get bands that Rancid was in town that same fucking weekend. Oh boy. And so we found out H2O and Fearless Vampire Killers were both playing different day the next day as openers for a sold out Rancid show, because they sold the shows out without support and they just put support on. So JJ hooked it up, Toby hooked it up, and H2O and Fearless played the Friday night of This Is Hardcore because they were playing the Saturday as a support, and Saturday was Terror. And at the time, Blacklisted really had a huge buzz, and for a minute they were like, fuck this, we're breaking up. So that was going to be the last show they were going to play. So we were kind of like, okay, Blacklisted could close out Philly. Plus we had to end the show by 7:00 because Mr. Chan had a quinceañera. And when I say when Mr. Chan has a quinceañera, you better pay attention. Bro, when I tell you we're loading out, I literally was screaming and yelling at everyone, get the fuck out. And as we're pulling bands out, like the cake is coming in, everyone's dressed up. There was a fucking band, and we're like, what the fuck? And he's like, we got to keep it going. I'm like, oh my God. And like, that's guy. Mr. Chan though. And for a couple years, he wouldn't let the last day of the fest run late solely because he always had something else immediately booked. Right. It's fucking crazy. Hey, but before we move on to the next This Is Hardcore, sort of, I want to shout out Ray, who just did a super chat, and I have to put up some of her great artwork. I put it up before, but she is one of the people that I don't know if you've been to what's going on, how many shows you've been to lately down there in Philly, but we have this sort of thing that's happening up here now where younger people are coming to shows and like drawing and painting and doing artwork right in the moment of the show. And this was done at a recent show that we did. This was done at the Kingsland. And this is a cool trend that's happening. Have you heard about this, Joe? I've seen pictures on the internet, and I didn't know it was generated as it was going on. Yeah, no, they come and she's there watching and sketching. We have another guy that's doing painting, and it's like art being created in the moment. It's like the new thing. It's the next level. It's very cool. Very cool. Well, I imagine that you see the synchronicity to even the earliest days of hardcore, sure, when, the Andy Warhol New York was all artists, and that was the home of hardcore. Now art is returning. There's a huge influence of art in hardcore and the album work, T-shirts now, and it's awesome to see. Yeah, for sure. I love how you hang around long enough, you see the next, the wave goes in and the wave goes out. And listen, you've been doing this. Let me put another This Is Hardcore up. This is one that I was at, actually. You were kind enough to put me and my son on the guest list, and we really enjoyed this. This is farther down the line, yeah, but
this was epic. I mean, Biohazard played, the Misfits played, Cro-Mags, and like at this point, Joe, it's like you're firing on all cylinders. I mean, this show was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, this is also it was our 10th one.
Yeah.
And for me, you know, why I don't understand how other people work. So my brain goes, let's make this an amalgamation of so many different ideas. And that's, I didn't know what Pulp the band was. So when I named it This Is Hardcore, it wasn't Pulp influence. It was just like, I truly believe that hardcore has shared roots and different branches. And if you look at it, you got everything from Snapcase and Chokehold to the Misfits to Biohazard to the Exploited. And I believe that every band mentioned and every band on the bill, Negative Approach, all these bands have a place in the entire hardcore spectrum. And, you know, again, further branches go a little bit further from the roots, but it's all tied in. And so this is one of the bills where, because of the name, This Is Hardcore, and the people, it's very fucked up. And this is the one thing I'll say for people like, how do you do it? I get lucky. I get lucky that there's bands who will go to the people that quote unquote handle them and say, hey, we want to do it.
Sure.
Because left in the hands of the people that read emails and they have a business plan for a band, they often don't see the value in certain bands. Why should they even bother playing that? You know, we've got bigger things to do. And I'm very lucky that the bands see the connection into hardcore and understand that playing these kind of things tie everything back in. Because I can't tell you, for all the bands I booked, there's 10 bands I haven't gotten to because some agent or some manager didn't see well, why should they play here? You know, we could get more money, play this venue by ourselves. And so, you know, everything I do with This Is Hardcore, I mean, you know, you look at that bill we're looking at right now, like Shelter, Buried Alive,
Bananas.
You know,
this is a bananas bill, man. Bananas.
Yeah, you know, but we're still, but again, we're still
Earth Crisis, you know, like.
So Earth Crisis that day, they were very nervous. We put them on at a crazy time, and we put them on earlier because we were like, you know, you never know how the reactions are going to be. They had a reaction that still stands out. We put it up on the internet a couple of times. The entire place was screaming at the end of Gomorrah Season's Ends, I am straight edge, which is like one of their biggest like things.
Yeah.
But you know, the idea for This Is Hardcore is to bring all these bands together, because with all these bands comes the era of the Manball, Earth Crisis, and H2Os, the eras of all these different people, the young kids, old friends, and it's all encapsulated in these bills. And so it's fucked up. Without the people coming, there wouldn't be the show. Without the band playing the show, we wouldn't have all the people come. So it all works circular. And I'm just lucky that bands trust me and trust This Is Hardcore to make something like this come out, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I like, someone said 25 to Life with Stickman on vocals. That was great. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, again, I know that there's a lot that could be said and shouldn't be said about specific Rick to Life related stuff, but 25 to Life held its own.
Yeah.
If you took Rick out, the music stands, the people stands, they were a credible band. And I think at the time, because of Rick's antics on the internet, it was very, not a fuck you, but very cool to see Seth and all the guys who love playing in that band play their songs. And to have Stickman, who was one of the most insanely talented frontmen in the history of that era. I mean, fuck. All right. We got to go to this. So right here, you guys, this is important. This is important to understand.
Go, baby.
No, this is important to understand.
Go ahead.
So this is the hallway of This Is Hardcore in the backstage.
I recognize it.
I am a fan of everybody in this band, or this pictures of works and their bands. But what makes me love This Is Hardcore is the stuff no one sees. Backstage, there are friends like this who get reunited. There was an earlier iteration of this with Mike Judge also in the picture. And so having the ability to go ahead and put all these people in a room where they all get to play, we give them their own access, their own hangouts. And it's sometimes, I mean, look how happy Anthony. Oh, so not how cool he fucking looks, but like, look how fucking Anthony.
That's Anthony at his happiest.
Yeah, like, because how many times have you played a show and you don't get to see your friends?
Yeah.
Some of the best things about This Is Hardcore is seeing old friends from these old bands that you grew up loving, taking pictures with each other and loving everything about the fest. And it's like, I was there when that picture got taken. I stopped for a minute and I was like, holy fuck, I can't believe it. But there's been multiple times where everybody get together. And I love being able to say, like, it was this fest that brought all these old friends. The first time Choke and Roger had hung out in years was about 30 feet behind them in a little room that's like our catering area. And then when they both showed up, they both quietly were like, hey, do you have any coffee? So we made coffee and we closed the door and we said, don't no one going in there. And Roger, Choke, and Vinny Stigma hung out for the first time in, you know, who knows how many years.
Yeah.
And they were like three old hardcore men catching back up. It's not something you would put on a flyer. It has no financial value, but one of the coolest things about hardcore is like when 7 Seconds played and they all got to take pictures. It's the same thing. And so I'm glad you put that picture up because to me, it's not just a bill and everybody getting along, but it's seeing my hardcore heroes and my influences and the people that I like that made me what I am get to enjoy this. And that's why they keep coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're just sort of going through the gamut here of a couple shots that you sent me. And I'm not sure if this is it. This kind of stuff, you know.
This is one of my favorite people on earth. When I was arrested the first time, I was in county. I finally got a chance to call home and I said, hey, what's going on and everything? She's like, I got Isaac to do a benefit show. not what's going on with the lawyer. Her first thing was like, I got Isaac to do a benefit show. And so I'm like, okay, so what's up? Oh, well, yeah, we got the lawyer, but Isaac's doing this benefit show we're putting on for you. And this is it. This is E. Like E has always been in our corner. He refers to Philly as the sixth borough. And it's like, to me, like, I love the people that I get to interact with because of hardcore and, you know, the friendships that we built over the years.
Absolutely. Hey, let's veer off on, let me put up one or two pictures and then let's get into this a little bit. Cause this is really interesting. And that's,
hell yeah.
That's what's going on here. And let me put another picture. Let me put two pictures up and then let's talk about it. There's, let me see you in the mix right here. Yeah, there's this. There's this. Right? That's you, right?
Yeah, I'm in the center holding the spear.
Yeah. And then I like this one. And you sent this to me, but I actually had like a big high res version of this. And here we go. This is you and me outside of a show you
Antidote
promoted.
DYS.
Antidote DYS at the Barbary, right?
Yeah.
So
that's why I was fighting with that big shield. Look how fucking big. I would never fight with that now. I would never fight with that thing now.
That
so
fucking
big.
thing is like I think it was like the side of a barn, bro.
Yeah.
So I learned a little bit. Let's talk about your passion for SCA and what does that mean? Explain it to the people.
This is a group that started in the late 1960s called the Society for Creative Anachronisms. For those who don't know what creative anachronisms, for those of you who see Civil War reenactment, they have this term. It's called FARB, like far be it from the thing. So the closer you are to historical accuracy with buttons and wool and stitching, that's what Civil War people focus on. However, in the SCA, yeah, that's me in a tournament in Long Island in 2013 when I was fighting with a much smaller shield. And here's a great anachronism. Here I am in chainmail, mail drape, all covered armor, but I've got soccer cleats on. The soccer cleat would be the anachronism. And so the thing is, when I was really stuck in my brain with being arrested, a lot of my life was trying to focus on how to get some normalcy. I have always been a reader. My mother, because she was young, had to get her GED, so I had to go to the library with her. I was early influenced with so many different books that would take me into true history. Yeah, there's a picture of me at This Is Hardcore, different size shield, fighting against one of our friends. And again, you could see, actually, no, this is pretty damn accurate, minus the fact that our sticks are made of solid rattan, which is like a thick bamboo wrapped in duct tape so it can't splinter and pop someone's fucking eye.
Yeah.
But so what happens is, you know, you grow up into history, you know, you grow up into a lot of different things that would turn into Dungeons and Dragons. And then, you know, I find hardcore and I go on tour, but I still really enjoy medieval books. I read history a lot. I probably still read at least 1 or 2 books every couple months on whether it's the early period of the 8th century and Lindisfarne and the beginning of what would come to be the way England would get attacked by the Danes and all that, into everything up to the First Crusade, which is like 1079 and all that. And I really love history, especially European history, Rome specifically as well. And I'm dealing with looking at 10 to 15 years for a fight that happened at a show, but I wasn't involved in. I can go to shows and I could go to work, but I have to calm the fuck down and not get into fights because it's going to put me in jail. So I'm on the YouTube when it was first started to be a thing. And I remember in Tempe, Arizona, we were at a park waiting to play a show and we were getting food. And I saw these assholes hitting each other with sticks. And I went over and was talking to them for a couple of minutes, in one ear, out the other. There's no internet. There's no give me your email. What's your Instagram? And I'm like, holy fuck, is this just shit I saw in Arizona? And then I went into one of these crazy wormholes. And then, so for me specifically, yeah, I ended up on the Jump magazine. My boy George Miller put me on this.
That's awesome.
And
that's like you've arrived, right?
Yeah, like legitimately. And so here's a chance for me to do something completely out of my element. At 26 years old, the only real social interactions in my entire life have been through hardcore punk or some form of social with music. So I stepped completely out of my comfort zone and showed up at a practice in South Philadelphia and met an entire another world. Then the parallels start beginning. Like that shield I made, that shield there, I bought the aluminum. I put the leather straps on there. We put canvas. We painted it. The sticks we make. There's a lot of DIY punk things. And then you start talking to different people. There's a specific guy. His name is Sean Garrison.
It's a whole
culture. It's a whole culture.
But a lot of attention is of course paid to detail and authenticity, correct?
Exactly. So what happens is there are different people that play at different levels. In the SCA, which is the prototype for what LARPs would be based off of, they started it in someone's backyard, which is like also one of the most punk rock things. They all dressed up. They never intended to be an entire society with a worldwide membership in multiple kingdoms.
Right.
But what I found out is that the people inside are artisans. They're really interested in history. They're really interested in research. I have a friend who learned French just to decipher how to make a 14th century dress. I have friends who can cook off of recipes from the 12th century. And this is stuff that goes where in the Role Models movie, you see like they all show up and they put their armor on and they're all saying this shit in goopy voices. I've never seen any of that. Yeah, we do get together and we put our armor on and we do fight on teams and we have households like Game of Thrones. But for me, my first real, there's us after the end of war. The actual guy in Japanese armor and the brown armor is the singer of Dysphoria. I brought him into our household. But this is what happens. You go, you meet a group of people, you have similar interests, and you go to war. You camp out. Every day there's a different battle. It's fucking great. It's fucking hilarious.
I have to say that the gal up front there on one knee with the smile on her face says it all, man.
Yeah.
You could just see the joy that she has in being a part of this. To me, a picture like that, her smile just says it all.
Yeah, she's also 5'3" and fights with a giant pole arm. So she's like a fucking brute. And that's the thing is like these are people that are super important to me in my life.
Yeah.
And for me, having an outlet away from some of the drama that I caused in the hardcore scene and allowing a different perspective, it all leads back. Like the minute we started doing fighting, we were having different demos out front of shows. And it was never about like, we're going to recruit and turn hardcore people into SCA people, but it gave me something to do creatively, physically. And, when you're looking at 10 to 15 years, I had a lot of life on my shoulders. I was supporting a big part of my family. I had a lot of stress, and this was a great stress reliever. And it's also like one of those things where like the young kids would call it like a side quest. So in the middle of life being a little hard, let's take this side quest and start sword fighting, Yeah, there's a giant.
Kevin Haggerty says, but do you actually whack them with weapons? Well,
Yeah, there's-
here's what's so. I guess so, Kevin. Look what's going on. At first, when you sent me this picture, I was like, what is this? I wasn't sure what I was looking at. You know.
All right, so it's solid. It's solid rattan. It's flexible bamboo that is solid, and you wrap it in tape so that way it doesn't splinter because it brooms out instead of cracks in half, so you don't get hurt. Like you can't get stabbed on it. If you're not wearing an armor in a spot and someone hits you there, you're going to get a bruise. We have our armor, our hard armor minimums are on our kidneys, our groin, our knee and elbow. We don't target below because the shin and ankle, you'd really fuck some people up bad, and it would probably be like legit lamed easily. You can see it in you can see it in MMA where people in the leg, they get kicked hard and it fucks them up. So we target above the knee. But if you don't wear armor or you get hit in a spot, you will absolutely bruise. And there's people who don't wear their armor correctly and they get fucked up. But the intention is it's like stick paintball. I hit you, you say it's good, and that's it. And we have fun, you know?
Let me
He asked a question about the dull metal blades.
Yeah.
Bobby Grimewich.
Oh,
yeah.
Hold on. Do they fight with dulled metal blades as well?
That same group broke off to create what is now a huge growing industry in America with steel fighting. And it's the guys who I know from the SCA. And actually, those guys came to this hardcore the last couple of years, and they're called Armored Combat Sports. And they put on a hell of a show. I actually fought it 1 year. I got a really, 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 really fucked up concussion, got slammed on the ground from behind. And hey, man, I pour concrete for a living. I can't be out of work for 2 weeks getting slammed on the ground doing steel fighting. But yeah, steel fighting is an adjacent group to what we do and people that broke off to do it.
Yeah, makes sense.
No, tell him, he said like a kendo stick. A kendo stick isn't solid. This is like 100% solid. Like you get it's a lot heavier. Most are
go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So I don't want to get into the weeds on that.
No, I think we just
touched on it.
We turned a lot of people onto something that was really interesting. Let's take a break and we'll come back and we'll take some questions from around the world. Okay.
Cool. Awesome.
All right. What's happening? You know what this is and you know why we are here. It's the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live, and we are sponsored by the Organic Grill, the Texas Silver Rush, Chain Reaction Records and Skateboards, DTFM Vinyl Distro, Chacho's Tacos, Generation Records, and the one, the only, Debo the Pro, Lee Farrelly, New York Hardcore Comics, opened back in 2013, selling comic books, punk rock, and hardcore memorabilia, toys, statues, skateboard decks, tapes, vinyl, and all things horror. We love helping bands push their demos and new tracks, so please stop by and drop off your new music, even if you fucking suck. We have in-store events like Magic the Gathering and Warhammer tournaments, plus meet and greets with bands and some live performances. Open 7 days a week and shipping worldwide. Find us online through Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and eBay. We are located at 117 Main Street in lovely Dobbs Ferry, New York. www.newyorkhardcorecomics.com. Chain Reaction Records and Skateboards, located in Lakewood, Colorado, is the Rocky Mountain headquarters for all things punk, hardcore, and metal. Established in 2014, they have the largest selection of records, CDs, shirts, stickers, patches, and accessories between Chicago and LA. From the pit to the ditch, we've got your back. Get in touch with them. www.chainreactionrecords.com. That said, as we get your questions together for Joe Hardcore, we're heading down the home stretch. Yeah, what else do I need to mention? Next up on the show this Wednesday, just a reminder, is EK, formerly of Warzone and Sick of It All. We're doing an EK show this Wednesday. All right. And then a week from today is Scott Ian from Anthrax. We're going to have Scott Ian on the show, so everybody better friggin' behave themselves. Don't torture this poor guy. I got him on the show. Don't torture him. Is that a Judgment Night poster behind you? No, that is a Judgment Night gold record, my friend. Presented to me by Biohazard as a gift for when I was working with them. That is a gold record. That said, let's clear the deck. Let's get some questions going for Joe Hardcore. Post them up. Don't be shy. If you've posted them already, post them again. Here we go. Joe Hardcore. There you go. Hey, you know what? You know what I want to ask you? Oh, here you go. This is from our boy. Let me put up his. This is from RS70. Hey, yo, Joe Hardcore. Did you ever get into writing graffiti?
Yes, I did. But I would say that the world of people who from our neighborhood that write graffiti, I got a lot of friends who are dead, a lot of friends who are on heroin, and you have to make a choice. Are you going to be the guy who wants to climb on a train and write graffiti, or do you want to be the guy who beats people up? And at a certain point, the amount of crazy shit happening in Philadelphia was a lot more fun than sneaking around on the same 7 or 8 fucking rooftops to try to make sure we held this wall down. And there was always graffiti beef. I mean, like a lot of neighborhoods, there's different crews and at different neighborhoods. And I liked it's fucked up, but I liked the graffiti beefs more than I liked writing. I love graffiti artwork. I have a lot of friends.
You and Isaac, right?
Yeah, but I learned early. I met my uncle is like a well-known but not well-known Philly dude, and I'm looking at him and I'm like, he's like a 55-year-old dude who's like, telling these old stories, and I'm like, I don't want to be that man,
Yeah.
And so, hardcore and graffiti is super linked at the time when I found hardcore. In fact, one of the first like little hardcore crews that we were all in was mostly graffiti writers and shit. So we were constantly fighting about graffiti with other people. And it went across, it wasn't just in Philly, and it was fun, but touring and having other shit to do besides like climbing on fucking roofs and granted, I love climbing on shit. It's like one of my favorite things to do as a kid, but
gotcha.
Nah.
All right. Ryan says, which band have you not booked that you wish you could? Who's the white whale of hardcore, according to Joe Hardcore?
It's not even a good one. It's just because they have shifted what they want to play. Bands like Life of Agony, bands like Biohazard. Biohazard finally would play, and I give so much respect to my boy Danny Deluxe for hitting me up. He's like, yo, how come we never played them? And here's all the emails I sent to your booking agent when you said hit them up. A lot of what happens is agents and managers stop the bands that probably would be into it from playing. And
happens in my business too. Doing documentary films, the managers and agents are sort of like that buffer wall. And then you finally speak to the artists and they go, what? I didn't hear about this. And
there's so many times where, and then because I have friends that are band members, if they say go to our agent, you're a friend. You don't miss business with friendships and go, come on, can you do me a favor? You go the way they need to go because every band has rules about how they want to do business and they can't give everybody favors. But a lot of times I haven't had bands and you haven't seen them on a bill because their management or their agent doesn't feel like it's a quote unquote good look. And it's a shame because the fans want to see so many bands that I just can't. I could pay them, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't work.
Yeah. All right, let's touch on this a little bit. It's sort of like a two-parter. Whatever happened to Thomas Oy? But I think this is something that seems to have come up. Why is there a no re-entry policy at this hardcore?
This was born out of the Mr. Chan era, where the neighborhood wasn't great, and there were multiple parking lots that somehow Mr. Chan would pay to rent for the weekend to then charge people to park in. They weren't his parking lots. So
Mr.
then
Chan, again, Mr. Chan.
Yeah, this motherfucker. And so I would be on stage and he'd be like, there's people in this parking lot. They're fucking in. You have to get down there. We're going to shut the whole show down over some dumb shit. By year 2 or 3,
by the way, is he still around?
He banked out. He sold his half, and he made a bunch of fucking money. And unfortunately, we'll never see that crazy motherfucker again. Real quick, we do shows at Starlight Ballroom. I try to do my first SCA event, like a sword fighting tournament. We can't get the place that they normally use, so I do an SCA event at Mr. Chan's venue. And he's like, we'll do it in the daytime, but I'm worried about selling alcohol in the daytime. It's all ages. We need to be careful. Then he comes up to me an hour into everybody wearing medieval clothes, and he goes, these Amish people are fucking awesome. He's like, I'm like, what do you mean they're Amish? She's like, oh, they're wearing these clothes. And I didn't want to tell them they're not Amish. They're dressed.
Bro, that's the name of my new hardcore band, Mr. Chan.
Yeah, the fucking man. So
Yo,
I love
Mr.
that.
Chan.
He legitimately thought all the medieval people were just Amish people. It's fucking great.
That's fucking great. Hey, let's address this a little bit, man. I think it would be improper to not to, just in some sort of way, shape, or form. I know you were on Gangland, and Rolling Stone did that thing, right? How did Joe get involved with SFU? Does he want to straighten anything out about it? They were prominent in the late 90s and early 2000s. I feel like it's something that we should throw on the table, and we should address it however you feel comfortable.
Just like I said, when you grow up in a neighborhood that we're from, there's not too much of a difference between the social hierarchies of neighborhood gangs and just walking down the streets and there being things. So why would there be any different when you're at a hardcore show? People are going to link up with each other. And so in Philadelphia at that time, there were constantly fights at shows, constantly battles with Nazis. And so early on, we were, obviously influenced by all this, whether it was the graffiti stuff, the neighborhood stuff. So we roll into hardcore shows, crewed up. And it was a very important way that we as younger guys could stay at shows, because we weren't the old guard. We got lucky that older guys looked out for us, and eventually like, oh no, these kids are cool. But we came into shows linked up. And so again, you start traveling. Well, now your squad meets this squad, everybody becomes friends, and it kind of snowballs into linking up and Philadelphia being a part of FSU. Yeah. And there are so many interesting things that I still look at as positive, and there's things that happen in crew things that are unintentionally negative to everyone else. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't getting arrested, and it wasn't, wanting to be a normal Hugh or working every day, because there's tons of guys who get arrested and are still in crews. There's a ton of guys that have real jobs and are still part of the hardcore crews. For me, there was an incident in Tucson that really changed how I feel about being a decision maker in a group like that, where you have to bear the brunt of the responsibility of decisions made. And, at 25, my decision-making process wasn't completely dialed in. And I had a lot of my own Philadelphia people that I had to think about. And I think we were starting to get to the age where I was already a father to 2 kids. Some of my guys were getting married. We had kids. Decisions that you make that would affect their livelihoods, their freedom, and their children had to be taken into consideration. But as far as the culture of crews existed before us, the cultures of crew existed after us. And so I don't stray from this question. I would just say that it is a part of hardcore culture, and it's integral in the Philadelphia hardcore scene, because of the fact that we have to maintain it. And right now we have to maintain it against these new alt-right groups and these new white power groups. And that's the thing that people don't see, because of the small, it's like all they say, like the bad actors. You're going to find some small crew in outer Jabip that jumps a young hardcore kid. But what you're not going to see is the work that the hardcore crews did from the outset to keep the really bad Nazi shit at a very minimum.
Especially in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania.
Exactly, yeah, because Unisound, Allentown,
Airport Music Hall, baby.
Yeah. And our friends from CC's and in Philadelphia, we had a couple rows and back and forth with each other, but we would still link up and say, hey, there's a show in Pennsylvania here. Make sure your guys come. We're all coming, and make sure there's no Nazis.
Right.
And so the thing about this is, it's not something I would push a 19-year-old kid who doesn't understand the world to. But if you grow up in our world and you grow up with us, it's something that, I don't want to be the guy that puts my head down if someone sig heils at a show. I'm going to blast them. I don't care if I lose. This space is not one that hasn't been punched a million times. And I'd rather fight for what I believe in, much so than sit back and go, oh, I don't want to get involved. And the unfortunate thing is that there are unintended consequences and things that happen that I don't really want to put on my own people anymore. But
okay, good. Let's move on. Ever consider having the punishment Broken But Not Dead put on vinyl?
Not in any way, solely because of the label situation.
Mhm.
I love Thorpe. I didn't really enjoy the recording, and if we would not take any time to put vinyl out unless major things change for the band as far as popularity goes, because I would never want someone to invest money and not make their money back.
Shout out to CC's, absolutely.
Yeah. Love it.
Gregory says, Philly loves you. Keep putting
Thank
on
you, Greg.
shows.
It's my home. We being on the show real quickly says New York Hardcore Chronicles live, and we don't have that many representatives from our scene. So I wanted to make. I was really happy because we're intrinsically linked. New York hardcore bands came to Philadelphia early on. Obviously, a lot of hardcore would not have happened without New York hardcore's influence. And we're okay with not having we don't have the Gorilla Biscuits. We don't have the Utah Today. But one thing that in my time of running shows and doing is I don't know too many New York hardcore bands that aren't appreciative about the shows they've come and played in Philadelphia.
Absolutely.
And that's the way that we can give back and make our own name. And as a hardcore city is we have some of the best shows in, to me, the world.
Fantastic. What else did I see? Let me see. Any Philly bands? Any Philly bands that never got their due that you feel that like you saw maybe back in the day or before you came up and were just like these guys are incredible. That sort of for whatever the reason it didn't break right for them. And anybody you feel like from Philly that didn't really didn't get their due? That
I'd have to say All Else Failed, which is a band that is a little bit outside. They're not going to sound like Agnostic Front.
Right.
But
right.
what those guys did stood out at the earliest stages. And I mean, Maddie put up Pagan Babies is a great example. One of the things you have to understand about Philadelphia life, going back to what I said in the earliest part of this podcast, we're not travelers. We're not world thinkers. We're normal. We're like working class people. Like our ideas in life is a little bit smaller than this big world concept. So specifically, our bands play a couple places. That's it. And also for me, I think that because we didn't have the scene size and we didn't have the bands from your own town bringing you out. I mean, yeah, like did Why Die and the early bands play with everybody that come through Love Hall? And you look at the flyers from Love Hall and you look at our support. Our bands were happy to play there, but how it was very rare that the return was meant like, oh, you know what, you need to come up here and play with us. Like we were local bands, and that a lot of the Philadelphia bands were just that. And the couple that would pop out were random. Now later in life, it's more popularity and it's tied in with social politics or people that can help other people, but like Turning Point in recent time had a resurgence and they were local to the area. Sean dying, I think, really stuttered the growth of Inga Dagger. And in the modern world, young hardcore kids will always say that Blacklisted has a special piece of their heart, and the world of hardcore knows Bad Luck 13.
Yeah, of course.
And,
how could you not?
Exactly. And that's the thing is we're just a town where we have our crazy bands, like we have our crazy legacy. And unfortunately, I don't think that our bands get the due, but in understanding the process and how a band gets popular, a lot of our bands didn't get the road work and didn't get the exposure. I would say that he said Drumming Moose, Kid Dynamite got overlooked. And I would say that in Philadelphia, they're still very popular because that Lifetime Kid Dynamite sound was popular. But the issue is there's a lot of bands like a Kid Dynamite. And I don't think that bands like that kind of style will grow unless they go into the commercial markets. And to Kid Dynamite's credit, they never wanted to play in a world to try to become the next Blink-182, and they stayed very punk rock like Kill Your Idols.
Yeah.
And that's an amazing thing. So, I mean,
for sure.
And that's also the thing is like, there are bands that just want to do their thing, like one of the greatest tragedies right now, I'll say, is that this band from Philadelphia is called Please Die. They are terrifyingly hard sounding in the negative approach, old school first generation hardcore way, but
Right.
you know, they're not 20-year-old kids. So people look at them and go, oh, you know, and thankfully Choke got them on the show in Boston as the third Slapshot 35-year show. But there's bands that have been absolutely fantastic. I can name dozens, but no one would hear them unless you're from Philadelphia. And it's because popularity wise.
Can I shout out a show that I came down to Philly back in the day? We came down to Love Hall. It was SSD Control, DYS, Jerry's Kids and FUs, and a band from New York called Antidote.
Hell yeah.
That I saw. And of course, this is a band I ended up singing for later on. But these were the kind of great, I mean, Love Hall, you know, in the early 80s had some great shows, man. Philly had some great shows. Sadistic Exploits and
yeah, I mean, there just was so many, but they were, for some reason, some bands got out in the van and traveled, and some bands were the openers, and maybe those shows were so good they had the opportunity. But I also, you know, we just didn't have the integrated scene size, I think, to like have a record label that was industrial enough to go far. I mean, like, and I think that's paramount to a lot of reasons why some bands are a time and place thing, you know?
Sure. Absolutely. Let's talk about this a little bit real quick. Your love for MMA.
Yes.
Please.
When I think about hardcore, and especially in the time, the same thing I was saying about the Dungeons and Dragons squad that I was rolling with, when UFC came about, we were fucking blown away. You know, like we had watched all. I was that kid who watched all those crazy those death VHSs. You know, that was like, you know, we love Cannibal Holocaust. You know, but also our neighborhoods are intrinsically linked with boxing. Yes. And Philadelphia is a boxing town. And
Smoking Joe Frazier, Rocky.
At the earliest levels, I can remember the big fight, especially the big Tyson fight, being like the thing every uncle would come out for. Like the amount of like great hangouts with all the cousins were because of a fight. And everybody would get together. It was like a great moment. So when UFC started coming around, I'm like, holy fuck, this is a little bit of everything. And I had done a little bit of Kempo as a kid and did a little bit of sparring as a kid. And honestly, it was not something that I wanted to do more than play soccer and climb trees and get into trouble and hang on that railroad tracks. So I didn't focus on it. But when you go to hardcore shows in Philly, soon as we start meeting people, and our friend Jared, who is the guy who runs the school that I go to now, he was a jiu-jitsu player. Like he was in jiu-jitsu. And we're like, this is the mid-90s. We're like, what the fuck? This guy must be Hoist Gracie if he's doing jiu-jitsu. You know? And like as MMA grew, soon enough, my brother Cracker would have shows all the time. If there was a UFC or a Pride, it would be at his house, and we would all go to his house and watch it. And it became one of the few times, like I'm not a football player. I'm not a football dude. Used to run up baseball. I do exactly what you're talking about. I go to the Phillies game. I don't sit in my seat. I go out and spend $80 on hot dogs and seeing friends, and I love it. But UFC was always a way to get all our friends in the room. And so I always loved it. And then more and more, like Rob Sullivan, who's a hardcore guy in Baltimore, runs a BJJ Baltimore BJJ. I went and seen him fight. I've seen plenty of my friends now involved in MMA fights. And you have to support your friends when they have the balls to train and be ready for a fight. And so I love the atmosphere and supporting my friends.
Who's this in this photo with you?
I can't see the picture for some reason.
All
I wish I could.
Can't see that, huh?
No, you're good, but there's a black behind me. Huh. I can't even see me on your screen right now, which is super weird.
All right, well, it's the shot that you sent me. The guy is totally tatted up, chest, hands, fingers.
That's Jarrett.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's so there's me, Hard Carl, and Jarrett, right? And so, you know,
yeah, Hard Carl. Yeah.
Hard Carl, who started Jinx Proof Tattoos. Yeah, he builds tattoos.
Yeah. Michelle said, Monona said, it's Carl from Jinx Proof. Yeah.
Yeah. So 2018, I'm fat. I just got my hair cut. I wasn't as motivated, and I was so busy working this oil refinery that I just started getting fat, and I didn't really change my lifestyle habits. In a weird situation where I get into some shit with a kid, and Adam from H2O and my buddy Pete were there, and they're like, oh, that was great street jiu-jitsu. got me thinking like maybe I should try doing jiu-jitsu. And so I started training in June of 2018, and Carl moved to Philadelphia in August of 2018. And Carl is now like one of my very closest friends. He's my training partner. 3 years of multiple times a week. We're putting each other's elbows and shit in each other's faces. And Jarrett in the middle, that's Jarrett Wiener. He played in a band called Frontline, played one of my like first big shows that I put on. He's was a pro skateboarder. He's a multi-time world champion in jiu-jitsu. Now there's Drew Rash, another old skinhead guy who's a tattooer. He trains there. All of our friends in our later times in life, early middle age, we're finding jiu-jitsu as a way to make ourselves happier, mentally more solid. And so obviously the more you get involved in training jiu-jitsu, you have more friends that are involved in MMA. And also
it's another, like we talked about, it's another subculture, subculture, community and culture. And these are the ties that bind us together, man.
But it's like, so like Hoya, he just lost a bunch of weight. He's a longtime jiu-jitsu fan.
Yep.
He got hooked up with this gi company, Heaven and Earth, and he hooked me up with them. So I just got a gi and a bunch of clothing in the mail for free so we could promote them. And it's like, I can't believe that, because it's like I suck at jiu-jitsu. I do it all the time, but I'm not good at it. But hardcore kids are alive. There's a guy, Angel and Cruz have Angela Cruz has a podcast, Angel and Z podcast. He's had Isaac on. He's had me on. That kid's a jiu-jitsu player. The same thing that goes on with hardcore. Everybody's getting involved in this or have been involved in it. It has roads right back to the scene. The guys in Code Orange, they train jiu-jitsu. Obviously, Billy from Biohazard is a black belt. Joe from Wisdom of Chains, black belt. Or not black belt, purple belt.
I put that picture up of you and him, yeah.
Yeah, like this is one more way that we all can sync together beyond the music, and yet it's somehow intrinsically attached to it. Like when Jotham and them did that last Persistence tour, the last tour that Persistence had in 2020. Yep. Every day those guys train jiu-jitsu together. Roger,
Billy, Joe.
There's so many. I mean, there's so many. Just like there's so many people in hardcore that train in jiu-jitsu that is just one more thing that we have together.
Cool. Hey, let me read you something that just came through on my phone. And this is from Mike Judge.
The best dude.
Usually I try not to look at my phone when the show's happening, but I managed to glance at it. And he said, this is from Mike Judge. Here's the text. He says, Joe used to email me every year to play This Is Hardcore. Finally, the year came and he wrote, I'm not going to ask you to play. I just want you to write back and tell me why you won't. Finally, we did it in 2013. I love Joe.
Yeah. And he said to me, he was concerned, obviously, because of some crew stuff. And I told him, this place is safe enough for you to bring your wife, and you're going to want to come back any year. And him and Karen have been back many times.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing of hardcore. You go from just loving a guy's music and the influence to somebody like Mike Judge I would call a friend. And I love that hardcore brought him back in, and he got to see so many things, man. He's a great person.
Yeah, it's great. It's great that he's back around. Let's wrap it up. Let's bring on Steven Messina. Hey, Steven.
Hey, how you doing?
You got anything for Joe Hardcore?
I just really
I can't even hear him or see him.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Go ahead. I'll translate. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Hold
on, Joe Hardcore. I'm going to translate. Let him talk. Go ahead.
I just have to commend his he has a very purist attitude towards the music and the scene, and it's a thing that I've always loved. And just the fact that how the bands didn't travel, but they brought the world to them and created this incredible thing that now resounds nationwide. Like I know people that constantly say, "Oh, I'm psyched. I already took off the weekend of This Is Hardcore. It's 3 months away. I already told my boss." And it's been a bucket list thing for me. I have yet to be there. And every year when I see the lineup,
okay, I can only translate so much. Condense it. Joe Hardcore, he basically says he really appreciates the purist approach to this thing. And it's on his bucket list, Steven Messina, to come down to This Is Hardcore. He's still.
I love for him to come and shoot. Yeah, we'd love
Yeah.
for them to come down. And
I would be absolutely thrilled
you know,
to do that.
and also
so.
the thing is, purity is just because there are people that have the money. It's just like poker. If you play poker, you could be the best player in the world. If you don't have enough chips, you're going to get bought out and lose.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to be a conglomerate where I book multiple festivals to make money. I want to put on the best This Is Hardcore Fest I could do that year and hope next year to do something cool. And so I appreciate you saying that. But the purity thing is just understanding limitations and understanding there's a reason why and we talk about this a lot on the podcast, hardcore is the ultimate subculture, and we have influenced every fucking bit of pop culture going forward. And unfortunately, because of the true nature of it being a street subculture, people take it and they'll run with it and make money. And most of our greatest heroes don't have that money, which sucks because of what they put into it. And so knowing that there's a window, like a secret glass ceiling for most of us, where financial success and living on yachts will never happen. The thing is to keep the hardcore thing pure, because every generation, a new person is re-examining and seeing new bands or being exposed to bands. And that's why I've always put bands like Vision, R.I.P. Dave, Maximum Penalty, Killing Time. I've always, as much as I had a bunch of young bands and different stuff, I stay true to the stuff that has always touched my heart at the beginning, which is New York hardcore stuff. And so I cannot in good faith one day just start trying to book like the Good Charlotte headliner and the cool young bands and forget about the stuff that got me into this, you know? And that's one of my favorite things about the fest is bands now trust me to put them on a mix bill. And that's why I do it, because I love this shit and I want people to see it. But there's no Lollapalooza for me.
Well, your passion comes through, Joe. Absolutely. And it's no accident that This Is Hardcore has really become one of the premier pure hardcore festival, American hardcore festivals in this country. You know, what you do. Hey, Steven.
Absolutely.
What do you want to shout out, Steven?
No, you know what? Listen, I just again just want to say thank you for being here. And you know what I do? I want to shout out Rich Ramirez, the drummer from Nine Lives. I spent the other day with him roaming around, and one of my oldest friends, actually my oldest friend since I'm about 11 years old, phenomenal drummer, and you know, just glad, you know, as the years go by, people that you make music with and that you go to shows with and you share things like This Is Hardcore or Black and Blue Bowl, you know, and most of my greatest friendships are due to the concert scene and the bands and everything. So I really want to shout out Rich today.
Well, thanks, Steven. Have a good rest of the Sunday, and I'll see you soon, bro.
Take care, Joe. Nice meeting you, man.
All right, Joe. Well, hey, man, thanks a million. That was really great. It was really.
I really appreciate having me on the show. That's awesome.
Hey, man, bring me on your podcast one of these days.
It's going to happen. Now we're working on. I had a major technical difficulty. I had to wipe my computer. And like been 2 weeks without a release. We're working on the new Rule of Three podcast, and I got a bunch of stuff. And you will definitely be a guest. For me, when I do the thing, I go crazy with research, and I have fucking 5 sheets of notes in front of me, and I try to bring out the conversation that you may have had somewhere else, but in a different way. And I do it from a way where I want to know not only what Drew Stone came from, but why he does what he does, and in a almost a historical way, but also define your motivations. And you're someone who has done so many things that I think me and you will have to end up having like a 3 or 4 hour podcast, which I don't mind doing.
I reached out to you when I saw you did the video podcast with Paris Mayhew from the Cro-Mags, and I thought you were very good. So I'm absolutely looking forward to doing it with you, man.
No, you reached out, and it was actually like a great accolade coming from you. And I was it was like 20 degrees outside, and the podcast drops at 4 a.m. and I'm grinding a concrete wall, and I get a text from you like, dude, this is great. And to hear it from you really made my night. I was really happy. And yeah, moving forward, we're definitely going to bring you on the show, and just thank you for giving me the opportunity. I always say, like, I'm not the old school. I'm not the new school. I'm like right in this weird middle group at being 41 and going to shows at this time where I'm not even anywhere close to some of the oldest shit, but I have a lot of love for it. And without hardcore, my life would be vastly different. So I always try to put as much as I can back into it for what it gave me.
Thank you, buddy. Have a good rest of the Sunday, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
Take care. Well, there you go. Great show. That's what we do here. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. We're very fortunate to have you watching it and supporting it. Our sponsors, New York Hardcore Comics, The Organic Grill, the Texas Silver Rush, Chain Reaction Records and Skateboards, DTFM Vinyl Distro, Chacho's Tacos, and Generation Records. Great show, man. Thank you, Ryan. Maurizio, thank you. Good night. Mandy Ackerman, what's up? Thank you, Mandy. Steen in Denmark, thank you. Jorge, the podcast is amazing. Yes. Yep. Everybody. Thanks a lot, everybody. And thanks for giving me the opportunity for doing something I love and for supporting it. Until then, we'll see you on Wednesday for EK. Do good things, and good things will come to ya.